The life of a ninja beginning in the Hidden Mist Village. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51. Sorrow. Not good. Without caring about cleaning up the Byakugan he had just cut off, King crossed his hands to protect his head and quickly retreated. Unfortunately, he had previously invested 99% of his energy in cutting off the Byakugan, and the remaining 10% was used to guard the surroundings, so he did not pay attention to the actions of the Hyuga clan, because, in his eyes, that guy was already a dead man. In addition, the aura of the Hyuga clan was almost non-existent, and the movements were so subtle that King could not detect it at all. By now, when he noticed that the detonating tag was activated, it was too late. Boom. The dazzling flames came into view, and King had no time to escape to a safe distance. The blazing fire waves and turbid smoke and dust submerged him. Then a huge impact hit his chest and threw him out of the smoke. This sudden scene stunned people on both Konoha and Kirigakure. No one knew what had happened. When everyone came to their senses, there was only a shallow pit of more than 2 meters in radius and a charred humanoid object where the Hyuga clan was lying. Obviously, that was the remains of the Hyuga clan. As for King, he was lying on the other side of the open space in rags and blood. Captain Terumi Mei exclaimed, and immediately left her opponent and rushed over. Nanashimo and Zabuza also consciously surrounded them and guarded the two inside. Seeing this, the other Konoha ninjas also surrounded them. Fortunately, at this moment, a team of mist ninjas rushed out of the dense forest. Seeing the situation on the field, they did not say anything and immediately dragged the Konoha ninjas who were about to besiege Nanashimo and others into their own battle, resolving Nanashimo and others' urgent needs. Captain Ao, Captain, wake up. What's wrong with you? Terumi shook the unconscious leader vigorously, but she couldn't get any response from him. Her voice couldn't help but have a little more crying. Although she often didn't like this captain, she knew very well that without this captain's leadership, she and Zabuza would have died countless times on the battlefield. At this moment, Captain Ao suddenly encountered an accident and the team lost its backbone. She couldn't help but panic. Try the captain's breath to see if he is still breathing. Seeing that Terumi lost her composure, Qishuang was cautious and alert while reminding loudly. Although they had the support of their companions in Kirigakure and were temporarily out of danger, he still didn't dare to let down his guard. There were too many variables on the battlefield. Take what Captain Ao had just encountered. No one expected that under such circumstances, he would encounter an inexplicable explosion. It's always better to be careful. He didn't want to die young. Hearing her companion's reminder, Terumi's flustered heart seemed to have found its direction again. She quickly reached out to feel the leader's breath. Feeling a trace of air coming from her fingertips, a big stone in her heart finally fell to the ground. There's still air, she replied excitedly. That's good. Nana Frost breathed a sigh of relief. Zabuza also showed a relieved expression. Kid, was it you who sent the signal just now? A mist ninja who looked like a leader came over and asked Nana Frost and others. Based on his exposed chakra aura, Nana Frost judged that this person should be a mist ninja of the Jonin level. Yes, it was us who sent it. He nodded and replied. Then, where is the target? The man frowned and asked. Since arriving here, he has been searching for traces of the mission target. Unfortunately, until he identified all the Konoha ninjas in the field, he did not find the figure of the Hyuga clan. That's it. Nana Frost pointed to the charred human figure in the shallow pit on the other side. Dead. Looking at the charred remains, the man felt incredible. Then, he turned to the 3 people and asked, are you sure that guy is the current Hyuga clan leader? And not another Hyuga clan member in disguise? Just before, their team caught a guy disguised as a Hyuga clan leader, wasting a lot of energy in vain. He didn't want to be happy for nothing here again. After all, the charred remains could not identify the other party's identity. We are sure that it is the Hyuga clan leader. Qishuang nodded, pointed to the unconscious leader behind him, and continued. Our captain was blown into this state just to remove his Byakugan. In order to prove his persuasiveness, he turned around and took out a scroll from King's ninja tool bag. He opened the scroll and quickly made a few seals. He pressed one hand on the scroll and King sealed the Byakugan position and shouted softly, "Open." A white smoke rose and a blood-stained eyeball appeared on the scroll. The Mist Ninja leader noticed that the eyeball on the scroll was very different from that of an ordinary person. The pupil could not be seen at all, and only a pure white eyeball could be seen. He knew very well that in the entire ninja world, the only people who had such eyes were the Hyuga clan of Konoha. And in the Hyuga clan, the branch family members were branded with the bird in a cage. As long as the Byakugan was peeled off, it would be spontaneously destroyed by the bird in the cage. Therefore, the Byakugan of the branch family could not be completely removed. Only the Byakugan of the Hyuga main family could be completely removed. And the Byakugan on this kid's scroll was obviously a complete Byakugan. In other words, this Byakugan came from the Hyuga main family. Given the importance of the Byakugan to the Hyuga family, unless the holder died, it would be impossible for outsiders to get it. Therefore, what this kid said was very likely true, and the Hyuga main family had been killed by them. How about it? Do you believe what I said? Qishuang asked the man tentatively, and formed a set of hand seals again. Seal. With an order, he injected chakra into the scroll, and after a burst of white smoke, the Byakugan was sealed in it again. Hearing this, the leader of the Mist Ninja looked at him solemnly and said slowly, "Pack up and prepare to retreat." As he said this, he took out a small rocket launcher from his pocket and pulled the fuse towards the sky. After a sharp sound, there was an orange-yellow smoke screen in the sky. Qishuang knew that it was the signal that they had completed their mission this time and were ready to retreat. They were going to retreat. Hearing the sharp sound and seeing the signal smoke screen in the sky, the Mist Ninjas present got rid of their opponents and gathered in the direction of Qishuang and the others. Seeing the opponents gathering, the people of Konoha did not dare to step forward to forcibly stop them, so they had to huddle together with their own people, fearing that they would be killed by others if they were left alone. "Let's retreat." After everyone present returned to the team, a leader of the Mist Ninja immediately gave the order to retreat. With the help of several other Mist Ninjas, Qishuang and others took the unconscious king and retreated with the main force. As for the other Mist Ninja teams that had launched a surprise attack on Konoha's main camp, after seeing the retreat signal in the sky, they also fought and retreated, slowly withdrawing from the battle. This time, the surprise attack by Mist Ninja ended successfully with the death of the Hyuga clan. Chapter 52 Butterfly Dream. Following the surprise attack troops back to the camp of Kirigakure, Qishuang and others immediately carried the unconscious Captain King into the medical tent. After a careful examination, an elderly medical ninja said solemnly to the others, "Your captain was hit by a close-range explosion. In addition to the burns on the surface, his internal organs were also severely damaged. Although he won't die for the time being, he will probably have to lie in bed for half a month." Hearing that the captain was not in danger of death, Qishuang and others all breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, the medical ninja shook his head again, which made the three people's hearts tighten. He was seen pouring chakra into both hands, performing the healing technique to relieve King's injuries, and slowly said, "Whether it is the burns on the surface of the body or the severe damage to the internal organs, it is not a problem that is difficult to heal. The real problem is his eyes." "What's wrong with the captain's eyes?" Mediterumi asked nervously. Because King had been unconscious and his eyes were closed, she did not notice anything abnormal in the leader's eyes. Glancing at the unconscious patient, the medical ninja sighed. Perhaps the explosion was too sudden, and the distance was too close, so he didn't even have a chance to close his eyes. Both eyes were burned to varying degrees. The left eye is fine, the injury is not serious, and it should be healable, but his right eye, that's hard to say. The probability of blindness is very high. "How high?" Nanashiro asked solemnly. 90%. The medical ninja said without raising his head. At the end, he seemed to remember something and added, "Perhaps, a Tsunade of Konoha can treat this kind of injury. It's the same as not saying anything." Zabuza said coldly. "Now, Kirigakure and Konoha are in a hostile war period. It would be strange if Tsunade could help." Seeing the medical ninja's face was a little ugly, Nana Shuang hurriedly took Zabuza's shoulder and whispered, "Uncle just found a solution from a serious medical perspective. He didn't really ask us to go to Konoha to find someone. Why are you so stubborn?" Hearing his words, Zabuza turned his head to the other side and said nothing more. Nana Shuang hurriedly smiled at the medical ninja and said, "Sorry, he is so straightforward. Please don't bother with him." The medical ninja shook his head and said nothing, but he focused more on treating the patient's injuries. "What should I do? What should I do?" On the other side, Meditarumi stamped her feet in anxiety and said to the two, "If the captain is really blind in one eye, it will be very dangerous on the battlefield in the future. Eyes are the main organs of the human body to explore the world. If an eye is missing, the field of vision will definitely be greatly reduced. This is an extremely unfavorable situation for ninjas who often walk on the edge of life and death. And King is the leader of the three of them. Naturally, the four of them will prosper together and suffer together. Especially now that we are in a war period, there are dangers everywhere. It must be more difficult for King, who has lost one eye, to carry out the mission with them. We can only let them do their best to treat it." Zabuza looked back at the medical ninja who was treating the leader's injury and said very pessimistically, "Do your best and leave it to fate." Nanashin put his hands in his pockets and sighed. He was not a medical ninja and could not help with the eye injury. At this time, his hand touched something. It was a scroll, the scroll used by Captain King to seal the Hyuga Byakugan. He took it out to show the leader of the Mist Ninja to prove his identity as the Hyuga clan, and then put it in his pocket without putting it back to King. At this time, he suddenly remembered that in the original work, when King appeared, he was a one-eyed dragon. But he was not really a one-eyed dragon, but replaced one eye with the Hyuga Byakugan and covered it with an eye patch. According to him, it was his trophy in the last war. Is this the so-called fate? Then what role do I play in this fate? Qishuang looked at the scroll that he slowly took out of his pocket with a very complicated look. If King's getting the white eyes was a predetermined fate in the original book, then what is he, an outsider? Is it a predetermined part of fate? Or is it a self-correction of fate? Is it Zhuangzhao dreaming of a butterfly, or a butterfly dreaming of Zhuangzhao? Hey, hey, hey. A burst of childish calls came from his ears, which became louder and louder. Qishuang came back to his senses from his thoughts. "Ah, what did you say?" He turned his head and looked at the angry little girl next to him and asked, "What did I say? Should I ask you what you are thinking about? What are you thinking about so intently?" Meditarumi asked curiously with her eyes wide open. "Nothing, but when I think of you being so cute, if you marry someone else in the future, I feel very uncomfortable." Qishuang sniffed and wiped away her tears seriously. It seems that she didn't expect him to say such a thing, and Meditarumi was a little caught off guard. As a 10-year-old girl, she could not bear such words. Her face immediately turned red, and she said in a weak voice, "I didn't expect you to care about me so much." On the other hand, Zabuza, who had been bullied by Meditarumi since joining the team, saw her shy for the first time and his jaw dropped to the ground. At the same time, seeing Meditarumi like this, Qishuang knew that the joke was too big. He just teased this cute girl casually, but she actually believed it. If she knew he was joking, the consequences would be serious. As a last resort, he had to face the other party's happy eyes and bite the bullet to respond. Yeah. Then, not daring to continue to dwell on this matter, he quickly changed the subject and said to the medical ninja, "Uncle, I have a ready-made Byakugan here. I wonder if you can transplant it to our captain." After that, he shook the scroll in his hand in a signal. Byakugan is extremely precious, and only the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan can be taken away by others. In addition, with the protection of Konoha and the Hyuga clan, it is difficult for outsiders to touch it. If it weren't for this time, with the help of the power of war, they would never have been able to get this complete eye. Perhaps, the one in his hand is the only one lost by the Hyuga family. Its preciousness is self-evident. Now, the surprise attack troops have just withdrawn, and the higher-ups are still dispatching the battlefield situation, and the collection of losses and spoils is still being counted. No one has noticed the precious eye in their hands. When the higher-ups notice this thing, I'm afraid they can't keep it at all. It is very likely that they will be taken away by the higher-ups for the purpose of studying the Byakugan. Once such a precious thing leaves your hands, it will be difficult to get it back. Especially since he doesn't know what role he plays in this fate. Qishuang decided to facilitate the fact that King gets the Byakugan first. At the moment, he is not qualified to explore fate. Or rather, he doesn't want to use himself as a test subject of fate. After all, the tragedy of Steins Gate is still vivid in his mind. Even if he wants to try, he will use others to try, and he will be a bystander and witness everything. Did Zhuangzhao dream of being a butterfly, or did the butterfly dream of being Zhuangzhao? Chapter 53 Eye Replacement. Transplant the Byakugan? Meditarumi, Zabuza and the medical ninja beside him were all shocked. Yes. Nanashi nodded, took 2 steps lightly, blocked the entrance of the tent, and said to the others with a smile, the captain's right eye is almost impossible to be cured anyway. Then why not transplant this trophy we just got to him? I guess Captain Ao will be very happy when he wakes up and finds that he has lost his right eye, but has a Byakugan to make up for it. Meditarumi and Zabuza were still children after all, and they didn't have as many complicated ideas as Nanashi. When they heard that the captain's vision could be restored, their faces lit up, and they nodded without hesitation. I agree. I agree too. The captain will definitely like this Byakugan. I can indeed do this transplant operation, but the medical ninja didn't continue to speak, but showed a look of embarrassment. Just what? Meditarumi asked hurriedly. It's just that this Byakugan is too precious. Wouldn't it be a waste to transplant it like this? The man said with a little hesitation. Although he was a medical worker, he was very clear about the preciousness of the Byakugan. Because, so far, there was not a single Byakugan sample in the laboratory of the Hidden Mist Village. Therefore, he did not agree with the idea of the 3 people to use the Byakugan just like that. Qishuang smiled, pointed at the lying leader, and said, our leader was injured like this because of this Byakugan. Now, the leader happened to have injured his eyes. Shouldn't we replace him with this trophy? This? After learning the origin of this Byakugan, the man was speechless for a moment. Since it was someone else's trophy and he happened to have injured his eyes, no one could blame him for replacing it. Okay then. After thinking this through, he reluctantly nodded and whispered, give it to me. Then, Qishuang immediately made a hand seal, took the Byakugan out of the sealing scroll, and placed it in a clean tray next to it. Then, he instructed Zabuza and Meditarumi, you 2 stay here and watch. I'm going to go out for some fresh air. Fresh air? Although they were a little confused about what Ninashiro said, Meditarumi and the others didn't say much, but nodded to indicate their agreement. Nanashiro left the medical tent immediately. Of course, fresh air was just an excuse he made up. His real purpose was to stop other people who might come to ask for the Byakugan. As long as the Byakugan transplant became a fait accompli, no matter how much the people above wanted the eye, they couldn't forcibly take it from King. They could only ask King to cooperate with the research. After all, their King team had made great contributions in the mission to kill the Hyuga clan this time. King was seriously injured because of the Byakugan. It was understandable that the Byakugan was used on him. No one could say no. About half an hour later, a mist ninja in a hurry came here. I remember, you seem to be a member of the blue team, right? The man asked tentatively when he saw the little boy outside the tent. Well, my name is Qishuang, and I'm a member of the blue team. Qishuang smiled slightly and asked again, excuse me, what can I do for you? I heard that your blue team came from Hyuga. Before the man finished speaking, Qishuang immediately understood the other party's intention when he heard the word Hyuga. Shh. He immediately made a gesture to silence him, pointed to the tent behind him, and then pointed to an empty space next to him, winked, and immediately led him aside. He was very glad that he had expected it. At the moment, there was still no news of the successful Byakugan transplantation operation. Otherwise, if he just broke in and asked for the Byakugan, and the operation happened to be not completely completed, then they would have no choice but to give it to him. At this time, Zabuza heard movement outside the tent and stuck his head out to check, but saw Qishuang leading someone aside. He wanted to go closer to listen to what they were saying, but when he thought of his team leader who was still in surgery, he had to give up his curiosity. Is there someone outside? Meditarumi asked Zabuza curiously. She didn't go out to check, so she could only ask the companion who just stuck his head out to check the situation. Nothing. Not wanting to say more, nor to talk to Meditarumi, for fear of accidentally provoking this neurotic companion, he said this, and put on a look of keeping strangers away. Boring guy. Seeing that he kept silent, Meditarumi had no choice but to mutter helplessly. On the other side, Qishuang led the man aside, away from the tent, and whispered, Captain King was seriously injured, and is undergoing surgery inside. It is not appropriate to disturb him. If you have anything to say, tell me. Hearing that King was seriously injured, the man immediately asked with concern, how is his injury now? Qishuang looked sad and said frustratedly, the doctor said that one of his eyes was seriously injured, and he might go blind. That's really unfortunate. The man sighed. What do you want to talk to our captain about? Qishuang asked again. I heard that your team got a complete Byakugan from the Hyuga clan, so they want to requisition it to study the secrets of the Byakugan. The man did not hide it, and said without hesitation. Byakugan? Qishuang pinched his chin and thought for a while, and said with difficulty, it's a pity that you are late. In order to make up for Captain King's blindness, we have transplanted that Byakugan. What? Hearing this, the man was immediately stunned. He couldn't believe that the precious Byakugan was used so carelessly and hastily. Seeing him like this, Qishuang seemed a little embarrassed and said, if you want to study the Byakugan, you probably have to wait until Captain King wakes up, and let him cooperate slowly. It seems that this is the only way. The man was a little discouraged and helpless. There is a huge difference between studying a Byakugan that was taken alive, and studying a Byakugan that was transplanted into someone else. If not, there wouldn't be so many biological specimens in the laboratory. Then, he waved to the little boy and left slowly with frustrated steps. When King woke up again, it was already late at night. He was very happy that he was still alive, and even happier that he had an extra Byakugan. Therefore, he did not blame Qishuang for taking the initiative and asked the medical ninja to transplant the Byakugan to him. At the same time, Qishuang also learned from the other mist ninjas. Although the surprise attack team's mission was successfully completed this time, the main force did not gain much advantage at the Uchiha sub-camp. Although Kirigakure got the Uchiha's defense map in advance, the war still depends on the hard power of both sides. The Uchiha is not weak. Even with the main force of Kirigakure, they failed to take down the Uchiha in one fell swoop. Instead, they were bitten by them and attacked from both inside and outside with the help of the main force of Konoha, causing a lot of damage to Kirigakure. Perhaps Kirigakure hit too hard this time, causing Konoha's counter-attack to be particularly serious. This time, nearly 2,000 people were directly killed on their side. There were nearly 1,000 patients with minor and serious injuries. Among them, the surprise attack force had a total of only 600 people, and nearly 300 were lost. The others were all lost on the battlefield over at the Uchiha camp. Nearly 1/3 of the entire army was lost. Kirigakure can be said to have been seriously injured this time. Qishuang can fully predict that after this, unless there is a chance to decide the outcome, Kirigakure command will never launch such a large-scale war again. However, although Kirigakure suffered heavy casualties from the overall strategic situation, it was still a good deal to cripple the Uchiha clan and destroy the Hyuga clan, the two main forces on the Konoha front. According to Kirigakure's intelligence personnel, Konoha reorganized its troops after this battle and moved the main camp and defense line back 10 miles. Even the Uchiha clan, which had always been at odds with Konoha, moved into Konoha's main camp. Such a passive defensive attitude shows how serious the losses of Konoha's eastern defense line were. In this battle, Kirigakure won a tragic victory. Suddenly I found that the Baozaobag event has been updated. I wonder if you have watched it. Chapter 54 Aftermath. Late at night, there was silence in the Kirigakure command tent, so quiet that one could almost hear the sound of breathing. After a long while, a commander sitting in the tent finally spoke to break the silence. This is a tragic victory, don't you want to say something? The second man sighed and continued, what else can I say? Can repentance revive the many dead Kirigakure ninjas? As he spoke, he glanced at his companion who had spoken earlier with sarcasm. The first man's face froze, and he said in a hard voice, we are the supreme commanders of the entire Kirigakure army. Our decisions determine the life and death of countless people below. Repentance is certainly not what we should do, but it does not mean that we can simply turn the page. It is our job to learn from past experience, make adjustments, and reduce losses next time. Hearing his words, the third man sighed. This time, we underestimated the strength and courage of the Uchiha, and underestimated the determination of Konoha, which caused such heavy casualties. Next time we must never make such a misjudgment again. Next time. The second man shook his head in disdain after hearing this, and said, this time alone, we have destroyed nearly 1/3 of the Kirigakure army. In addition, the number of ninjas in our village is less than that of other villages, and we can no longer withstand such a large loss. If nothing unexpected happens, unless we are absolutely sure to defeat Konoha in one blow, the Kirigakure village will not let us launch such a large-scale offensive again. Hearing this, the other two sighed. The reality of the Kirigakure was like this, and they were helpless. In that case, let's wait and see for now. The first person took the lead in proposing an idea, and explained, if Iwagakure and Tsunagakure break through Konoha's defenses on the western front, Konoha will definitely shrink its defenses. At that time, we can break through the defenses here with minimal losses, and take advantage of the situation to attack Konoha village. That's good. The second person nodded, and then said, we can't just let Kirigakure do the hard work. Tsunagakure and Iwagakure should also make some great efforts. Let's have someone send a letter to urge them later. We can't just look at the three villages. The third person shook his head and added, although the third Raikage died, their strength has not been depleted much. The land of fire is a piece of fat meat, but it doesn't mean that they look down on the land of water. Especially since our strength is depleted now, we should send people to pay more attention to the movements of Qimogakure. After saying that, he looked at the two people solemnly. Second. Without any hesitation, the other two immediately agreed to this suggestion. Then, the three of them finalized the main action plan for the Kirigakure frontline troops to fight Konoha in the future, and sent someone to report this battle back to Kirigakure. That night, Kirigakure received an urgent letter from Kirigakure. As expected by the three, in the letter, the Kirigakure high level ordered that they were not allowed to launch a large-scale full-scale offensive again without absolute certainty. Just when the Kirigakure frontline received a reply from the top, Iwagakure and Sand Village also received a letter from the Kirigakure high level urging them to fight. Considering that if they lost the Kirigakure village, Konoha's entire energy would be pressed on the western front, and they would be unable to resist. Sand Village and Iwagakure had to intensify the offensive on the battlefield. Although there was some gap with Kirigakure's expectations, Konoha's transfer of people from the eastern front to support the western front still made Kirigakure's people feel much more relaxed. In the following days, Kirigakure and Konoha entered a strange stalemate. Although there was no large-scale battle, ordinary small-scale battles could be seen everywhere. Both sides were testing each other for opportunities. Just like last time, because of Nanoshuang, Kirigakure captured an Uchiha Jonin, obtained the specific deployment of the Uchiha camp, and arranged the strategy against the Uchiha and Hyuga families. The two sides once again engaged in a small-scale confrontation and testing. Moreover, because the Uchiha and Hyuga families suffered heavy losses in the last battle, Kirigakure's pressure on the western front was reduced a lot. This made the three Kirigakure commanders who were frustrated by the tragic victory in the battle very pleased. On the other hand, after completely adapting to the White Eye, with the help of the White Eye, King successfully promoted to a Jonin. However, because of the White Eye, King's team often encountered encirclement and suppression by the Hyuga family. The frequency of encountering battles on the battlefield can be said to be the highest in the entire Kirigakure army. For a time, Nanoshuang, who had a strong desire to survive, had a headache. He didn't like fighting. To be precise, he didn't like this kind of battle with a very high mortality rate. Because he was only a genin level strength, in such a chaotic battlefield, he might be killed by a Konoha Jonin at any time. Fortunately, there was a Byakugan on the other side, and their team also had one Byakugan. With the powerful insight of the Byakugan, the AO team escaped the encirclement of Konoha again and again, and killed many Konoha ninjas who came to encircle them. AO also earned the title of Bayan Killer. a killer with Byakugan, or a killer who killed the Byakugan people. It must be said that fighting is the best potion for improvement. Although it always makes people survive, it can stimulate the infinite potential of the human body. On this battlefield, Terumi and Zabuza were successfully promoted to Chunin one after another. Nanashiro was a little slower, but also faster. On this day, the AO team returned to the camp after going out for exploration and immediately discovered the strange atmosphere in the camp. Many Kirigakure ninjas had rare smiles on their faces, and even many people whispered to each other with joy. The whole camp was filled with a joyful atmosphere. You three go find out what happened today that made them so excited. King instructed the three subordinates and then slowly went to the tent where his team was. Although they came back exhausted and were a little dissatisfied with being dragged by the team leader to find out the news, the three still did not refuse. Because not only King was curious, but they were also curious about what happened. Hey, big brother. The three dispersed, and Qishuang immediately found a Mist Ninja smoking in the corner and greeted him. What do you want? The man put out his cigarette, stood up, and replied seriously. Facing this child who greeted him, he did not dare to be too casual. Because that was a subordinate of the famous White Eyes killer. There was only one White Eyes in the entire Mist Hidden Army, so King's team was very eye-catching among all the Mist Hidden Army. As a result, King's three subordinates were also well known to everyone. After a detailed understanding, they found that, although the three children were young, they were all talented and could be considered as the top geniuses in the Hidden Mist Village. Therefore, he recognized the identity of the child at a glance. Nanashiro from the blue team. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55. 7 people. We just came back and found that everyone seemed very happy. Is there any good news? Qishuang asked curiously. Just came back? The man looked at the little boy carefully again and found that there were many tears and fresh blood on his clothes. It was estimated that he must have fought with the people of Konoha before. No wonder the other party didn't know what happened in the camp. Then, he said with a beaming face, the 7 ninja swordsmen are here. Huh. Qishuang was stunned for a moment. He was a little bit unbelievable about this sudden news. As a Kirigakure ninja, although he had never directly contacted the ninja swordsmen, he had heard a little about the 7 ninja swordsmen who were known as the strongest under the Mizukage. Therefore, whether in the anime of the previous life, or in the Kirigakure of this world, the 7 ninja swordsmen of Kirigakure are an extremely top force. The 7 of them each hold the 7 legendary ninja tools of the Kirigakure. Each of them is at least at the level of an elite jonin, and there are even a few who exceed that level. Combined with the unique power of the 7 legendary ninja swords, each of them is a top powerhouse in the ninja world. According to many rumors from the Mist Ninja below, they even have the power to destroy a country by themselves. Qishuang naturally sneered at this, but combined with the background of this world, he had to believe it. Because, in addition to the 5 major countries, there are many small city-state countries on the ninja continent. One city, one country. And the military power of such small countries can be imagined, and even many small countries do not even have their own ninja troops. A ninja at least at the level of elite jonin, plus a legendary ninja tool, it becomes possible for one person to destroy a country. However, in Qishuang's view, this kind of glory of destroying a country by one person is just a joke, a self-deceiving joke. Even so, the strength of the 7 ninja swordsmen should not be underestimated. However, he did not quite understand what the people above were thinking. They actually sent the ninja sword 7 to the front line at this time. Are they preparing to expand the scale of the war and decide the outcome? However, he still remembered that Kakashi was only 11 years old at that time, and there was still some time before the Battle of Kanabi Bridge. This time point is not right. Moreover, once a force like the 7 ninja swordsmen is put into the battlefield, it means that the war will escalate, and the losses of both sides will increase exponentially. He can't think that Konoha will allow the 7 ninja swordsmen to kill people on the battlefield. Haven't you heard of the 7 ninja swordsmen? Seeing that Ninashiro was indifferent, the man seemed to think that he was too young and had never heard of the rumors of the 7 ninja swordsmen, and immediately introduced them very proudly. At the end, he added a sentence. If one day I can also become one of the 7 ninja swordsmen, it would be great. Ignoring his imagination, Nanashiro showed a face of admiration after listening and nodded again. Well, thank you, brother. I have something else to do. I'll go back first. Goodbye. Then, he waved goodbye to him. After returning to the tent, where the king team was stationed, Qishuang immediately reported the news she had inquired about to king. Not long after, Zabuza and Meitarumi also came back. The news they brought back was similar. In short, the core information the three of them got was that the 7 ninja swordsmen had come to the front line. That night, the headquarters sent someone to summon the leader king. Qishuang and the other two looked at each other, wondering why the headquarters summoned the leader. However, they were sure of one thing. The headquarters summoned the leader, which must be related to the arrival of the 7 ninja swordsmen today. Otherwise, it would be too coincidental. On the other side, after the notification, King quickly entered the command tent. In addition to the 3 highest commanders, there was also a fat man carrying a huge weapon in the tent, as fat as a meatball. King immediately recognized that the fat man was the Ziguishan Puffer demon. The weapon on the opponent's back, the weapon wrapped in bandages, is the most troublesome of the 7 legendary ninja swords of the Hidden Mist Village. The big sword Samehada. Is that the guy? Ziguishan Puffer Ghost looked at King with contempt. Yes. Behind the desk, a commander nodded and said, it's him. His right eye was taken from the main family of the Hyuga clan, and he has the same powerful insight as the Hyuga clan. Hearing the 4 people talking about him, King immediately greeted the 3 commanders. Hello, 3 adults. Then, the second commander said to him, King, we asked you to come here because we have a mission for you. Please give your orders, sir. King responded without hesitation. The third commander said solemnly, Iwagakure sent a letter saying that they found an opportunity and are preparing to launch a large-scale attack on Konoha's defense line. They want us to cooperate with Kirigakure to hold back Konoha's forces and create opportunities for them. Hearing this, King was a little surprised and said puzzledly, but we lost a lot of manpower last time. If we start a large-scale war again, it will not be worthwhile for us. At this time, the puffer ghost next to him frowned and said impatiently, that's why the higher-ups sent us here. If we rely on you bunch of rubbish again, God knows how many more manpower will be lost. After saying that, he spat with great disdain and stomped on him fiercely. King on the side was fine. He kept his attitude very low and didn't take the puffer ghost's ridicule to heart at all. But the other 3 commanders present were different. They were the commanders of the last battle, and they had no excuse for the tragic victory. Although it had been a while since the incident, now that the scars had been opened by the puffer ghost, they felt that their self-esteem was like the dust under the other party's feet, which could not be crushed anymore. Fortunately, the 3 people who could sit in the position of general commander were naturally not ordinary people, and they had some skills in cultivating their ki. Although they were very annoyed by the puffer ghost's ridicule, they still did not change their expressions, but the clenched fists under the table showed the 3 people's unfair mood. Then, one of them suppressed his anger and smiled dryly to King. We asked you to come here because we hope to use your Byakugan to lead the ninja swordsman 7 people and the surprise attack force to bypass Konoha's defense line and attack Konoha village. Hearing this, King was horrified. They thought that the ninja swordsman 7 people were sent here to reinforce the front line, but they didn't expect that the plan of the upper level was much more terrible than they imagined. With the strength of the 7 ninja swordsmen, plus the surprise attack force, if they take advantage of the fact that Konoha is fighting externally and is internally empty and attack Konoha village directly, the result will be much more fruitful than reinforcing the front line. In this way, the east and west defense lines will definitely send troops back to help after knowing that Konoha village has been attacked. At that time, their main force will be able to directly break through the east and west defense lines without much effort. The destruction of Konoha village is imminent. Afterwards, after determining the strategic deployment, King Qishuang suppressed his inner excitement, not daring to let anyone see anything, and pretended to be normal and returned to his team's tent. Chapter 56 Honored. When Qishuang and the other two woke up, it was already noon the next day. As for the leader king, he was still sleeping in his sleeping bag. No one knew when he came back last night. Hey, Captain. Wake up, wake up. Terumi Mei immediately pushed the young man in the sleeping bag, trying to wake him up, because she really wanted to know why the headquarters called the leader over last night. Beside her, Zabuza and Qishuang also came over, wanting to know what the leader did when he was called to the headquarters. After pushing once, King didn't move. After pushing twice, King turned over. Until the little girl pushed the sleeping bag for the third time, King couldn't pretend anymore, so he had to open his eyes helplessly. In fact, he had been awakened by the noise of the three people getting up, but he thought that he had nothing to do today and was tired yesterday, so he wanted to have a good rest, so he didn't get up with them. But he didn't expect that the three little subordinates were so annoying that they actually pushed him directly and insisted on waking him up. As a last resort, he had to open his eyes. Okay, stop pushing, Ming. King said helplessly, looking at the little girl who was pushing him hard. Captain, you're finally awake. Terumi smiled smugly. Glancing at the other two people who had gathered around, King said dazedly, what's the matter? Tell me now. I want to sleep for a while longer. After that, he yawned again, and sleepiness came over him again. At this time, Terumi called out softly. Captain, seeing her smile sweetly again, King's sleepiness disappeared in an instant. It seemed that even the god of sleep could not resist the cute charm of the little girl and quietly slipped away. Okay. Tell me what you want to say now. I'm not used to you being like this all of a sudden. King said with a smile. Most of the time, his cute little subordinate was a mischievous person, often beating up Zabuza, who was on the same team, without any temper. Since Nana Frost came, it seemed that she had found a new playmate, or for other reasons, Terumi had stopped beating up Zabuza. Even so, it was rare for her to act cute like this. However, he also knew that, whenever Terumi showed this look, she must have some ulterior motive. Captain Terumi called out sweetly again, and said with a smile, we just want to know, the headquarters called you over last night, is it related to the 7 ninja swordsmen who were just transferred to the front line? Then, Nanashimo and Zabuza also cast questioning glances. Hearing this, King sighed helplessly and nodded, yes, it is related to the 7 of them. Hearing the affirmative answer, Terumi Mei was immediately overjoyed and said, then, is it? Stop. As soon as she said this, King knew what they wanted to ask, and immediately stopped them, saying, there is indeed a mission related to the 7 ninja swordsmen, but this is an important strategic layout of the hidden mist village, and is top secret. To prevent the news from leaking out, the content of the mission will never be revealed before the scheduled time. You'd better not waste your energy on me. I won't tell you. If you really have that much free time, hurry up and pack up and prepare. We will take action tonight. Hearing this, the three were all stunned. Then, Qishuang quickly came to her senses and said in surprise, even we are qualified to go on a mission with the 7 ninja swordsmen? Considering the strength level of those 7 people, it was hard for him to imagine that 3 people at the level of Chunin would be qualified to fight side by side. Yes. King nodded again and whispered, you will set out with me tonight. If you are bored, pack up and get ready now. Or continue to sleep for a while. Don't be sleepy and out of shape at night and accidentally die in the hands of the enemy, then you will regret it. After saying that, he turned over again, closed his eyes, and ignored the 3 people beside him. On the other side, when the leader said that she could go on a mission with the 7 ninja swordsmen, Terumi Mei's face turned red, and she was so excited that she couldn't help herself. Even Zabuza, who rarely fluctuated in his emotions on weekdays, clenched the handle of his sword, showing an eager look. Isn't it just a mission? Why are you so excited? Qishuang asked the 2 in surprise. Aren't you excited? Terumi Mei asked back in surprise, as if she had seen a ghost. Just as Qishuang was about to retort, a sleeping bag suddenly appeared in the corner of his eye. He seemed to realize something, and quickly made a gesture to silence him, pointed at the leader sleeping next to him, and then glanced at the entrance of the tent, leading the 2 out. What's the excitement? After leaving the tent, he asked Terumi curiously. That's the 7 ninja swordsmen. Aren't you excited to have the opportunity to go on a mission with them? Zabuza, who was always taciturn, couldn't help but speak out. Qishuang scratched his head and asked back, so what? I don't think it's good to go on a mission with 7 big and strong men. This generation of the 7 ninja swordsmen are all men, and he is very clear about this. At the end, he muttered again, if it were 7 beautiful big sisters, it would be almost the same. Hearing this, Zabuza and Meitarumi were speechless for a moment. After a long time, their partner's attention was not on the same line as this. I say, don't you feel honored to go on a mission with such famous masters as the 7 ninja swordsmen? Terumi Mei still asked unwillingly. No. Nanashiro shrugged. Have you never envied them? Have you never longed to become one of them? Terumi Mei asked again. Nanashiro said casually, one day, I can also become a top strong man. Why should I envy them? Does it mean that I must become a member of the 7 ninja swordsmen to become stronger? Then why is the Mizukage not one of the 7 ninja swordsmen? This series of questions stumped the 2 children. They were surprised at Nanashiro's confidence in becoming a top strong man comparable to the ninja swordsman, and also surprised at Nanashiro's disregard for the ninja swordsman. At the same time, they also realized a problem that they had never faced. None of the Mizukages in history came from the 7 ninja swordsmen. Although the name of the 7 ninja swordsmen is very famous in the land of water, even slightly overshadowing the Mizukage, no one has ever doubted that the Mizukage is inferior to them. Because, in the Hidden Mist village, only the strongest can become the Mizukage. And the Mizukage has never held any ninja sword, but he is superior to the 7 ninja sword users. This naked fact shows that, even if a person does not need a ninja sword, he can become a ninja who surpasses the 7 ninja sword users. After realizing this, it seemed that a seed had sprouted in Meitarumi's heart, and her mind began to slowly move away from the glory of the 7 ninja swordsmen. On the other side, Zabuza was also touched, but he still could not forget the glory of the 7 ninja swords, but he was a little more confused. Chapter 57 Assembly. As Qishuang and the other 2 waited anxiously, the night fell. Watching the leader packing up the ninja tools, Terumi Mei approached again and asked curiously, Captain, what mission are we going to perform? King turned back helplessly and rolled her eyes at her, saying, you'll know in a minute. HMPH. Stingy. Without getting the answer she wanted, Terumi Mei turned around angrily, leaving only the back of her head to the leader. Qishuang and Zabuza quietly packed up everything, went straight out of the tent, and waited for the leader's next instructions. The moonlight tonight was particularly bright, but the silver light fell on the ground with a little more coolness. Thanks to this, Qishuang had a clear view of the situation in the camp. Normally, except for the people on duty, everyone should stay in the tent to rest during this period of time, but the camp tonight seemed particularly abnormal. In addition to their team, there were many people staying outside the tent, and even many people came in and out of the tent one after another. For a while, the camp was crowded with people, and it was unusually bustling. It seems that it's not just our team that has a mission tonight. There are many other teams that also have missions to perform. Qishuang sighed. At this point in time, so many people are fully armed. It is obvious that the top leaders of Kirigakure have formulated some important strategic plan, which is definitely not a small fight. However, he still couldn't guess what the top leaders were going to do. Not long after, King and the dawdling Terumi Mei also got out of the tent. All team leaders lead their team members to gather outside the camp. King jumped to the top of the tent and shouted to the people below. Then, the leaders of many teams had no objections and immediately led their team members to the outside of the camp. In just a few breaths, the originally lively camp became much quieter, leaving only the shadows of the tents, sleeping quietly in the moonlight. It seems that the other teams are also participants in King's team's mission this time. Otherwise, they would not pay attention to King's orders at all. Moreover, from this incident just now, Qishuang also figured out an important information, that King is the captain of their mission this time. Otherwise, the captains of the other teams would have no doubts about King's orders. After all, everyone was equal, and it was impossible for them to obey King's command so unconditionally. Captain, gather outside. Just when Terumi Mei was about to ask again, King gave her a very serious look. As a last resort, she had to give up the idea of asking and followed Qishuang and the others out of the camp reluctantly because she was the last one to go out. When Qishuang walked out of the camp, there was already a crowd of people standing in the open space outside. He roughly counted and found that there were nearly 1,000 people. Then, the three of them chose an open space and stood there, quietly waiting for the leader's arrangement. Then, King ordered everyone again, captains of each team, count your team members, and then wait in place, and prepare to set off. Then, there was another noisy sound of whispering in the crowd. Hey, do you know what mission we are going to carry out this time? Someone whispered to the Mist Ninja of another team. We don't know exactly, but we heard that it seems to be related to the 7 ninja swordsmen. Someone whispered back. Really? That's great. My dream is to become a ninja swordsman. Someone cheered. As for you, I think you'd better forget it. Someone mocked openly. What's wrong with me? I can have a dream too. The man replied unwillingly. Just as everyone was whispering below, 7 figures of different heights, weights, and sizes slowly walked out of the entrance of the camp. Look, it's really the 7 ninja swordsmen. Someone recognized the identities of the 7 people at a glance. Really? As the 7 people approached, everyone also confirmed their identities. The 7 strongest people under the Mizukage were all admired by the Mist Ninjas below, and with the unremitting efforts of the Mist Village to build momentum, everyone could clearly say the name of each of them and the ninja swords they used. At the same time, everyone also confirmed the news that they would fight side by side with the 7 ninja swordsmen, and the crowd below was boiling again. How is it? How do you feel? On the other side, Terumi poked Qishuang with her elbow and asked jokingly, after seeing them, do you still have the confidence to surpass them? Why not? Qishuang smiled slightly and asked back, there are many people in this world who are stronger than the 7 of them. Why can't I be one of them? As a bloodline limit ninja, it is not difficult for him to practice step by step to become a jonin. It is not impossible to explore higher realms. In addition, as a time traveler, he has insight into many mysteries in the original work, and has a great advantage in the way of practice. He has every reason to believe that he can surpass these 7 people. Moreover, the real level of these 7 people is actually the level of elite jonin. It is only because of the special abilities of the 7 legendary ninja swords that they have joined the ranks of the strong in the ninja world, and there is still a short distance from the strong at the level of Cage. This is also one of the reasons why Qishuang looks down on these 7 people. Relying on external things to get strong is ultimately illusory. Once they lose their ninja swords, their strength will drop a lot. Only the strength gained through their own efforts is the foundation. That is the real strength. I hope your confidence can be maintained like this. Terumi looked at Nanashiro deeply, her eyes full of brilliance. Zabuza didn't say anything, but when he looked at the 7 ninja swordsmen, there was no more confusion, and the rest was only the fanaticism and admiration like the other Mist Ninjas. Pufferfish Ghost, why do we have to set off with this bunch of trash? With the strength of the 7 of us, it is easy to break through Konoha's defense line. Looking at the Mist Ninjas who were pointing at them below, a ninja swordsman frowned slightly, his face extremely unhappy. His name is Taosao Yato, the owner of Blunt Sword Kirigakure. He believes that no defense can stop the blade that defeats everything, Blunt Sword Kirigakure. Hearing this, Ziguashin Puffer Ghost, the owner of the big sword Samehada, also looked at the Mist Ninjas with great disgust, and whispered, the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan and Konoha is too troublesome. With them here, it is basically impossible for us to bypass the defense line quietly and attack Konoha. Fortunately, this group of rubbish also got a Byakugan by chance. Using the Byakugan to fight the Byakugan, we can kill Konoha village quietly. As he said this, a ruthless look flashed across Puffer Ghost's face. He could fully foresee that in the Konoha village that was fighting on 2 fronts, the defense must be very empty. The arrival of the 7 of them was a complete massacre. The death of the 7 ninja swordsmen was vaguely mentioned in the original work, but there was no reason and specific battle process. I used my imagination to complete the reason and battle process. Although the result did not change much, I completed what was missing in the original work. I hope everyone will like it. Chapter 58 Bad Luck. But even if we need the help of the Byakugan, we don't need to bring so many trash with us, right? Taosao Yato still looked reluctant. Zigwish and Pufferfish Ghost replied helplessly, I have no choice. This is the plan made by the third generation. We need the surprise attack troops to cooperate with us and destroy Konoha village as much as possible. Then he waved his hand again and smiled. Okay, don't be so reluctant. Think about it from another angle. Actually, there is nothing wrong with this. What do you mean? Miri Jinpachi interrupted. He is the owner of explosive sword foam. The puffer turned around and said meaningfully to his 6 companions, it's rare for the 7 of us to attack at the same time. If there are not enough spectators, how can the people of the Land of Water know our style and strength? Hearing this, Miri Shinpachi sneered and said, this is a good deal for these rubbish. They actually have the opportunity to see me killing people in a heroic manner. Let's go. My Dakuga is thirsty. Tankei Oyeron tightened the handle of the knife behind him, his face full of excitement. Then, under the burning gazes of many Miss Ninjas, the 7 people slowly walked to King. How are the preparations, Captain King? The puffer asked young man arrogantly. Everything is ready. King nodded in response. Well, let's go now. The puffer waved his hand impatiently, as if swatting a fly. Yes. King was very humble, not showing any joy at all. He turned around and ordered everyone loudly, everyone, be careful and sneak, follow me. After that, he ran out with 3 small subordinates, walking in the front to lead the way. The rest of the Mist Ninja and the 7 ninja swordsmen followed far behind. Seeing the veins on King's right face bulging, Qishuang knew that it was the state of the Byakugan. The other party was searching for the enemy's traces. Estimating that the time was ripe, he could no longer suppress his inner restlessness and asked, Captain, it's so late, where are we going? Then, Mediterumi and Zabuza next to him also pricked up their ears. To Konoha village. King looked straight ahead and replied expressionlessly. At this moment, everyone was on the road, and there was no risk of the news leaking out, so he did not continue to hide it. Go to Konoha. Go to Konoha. 2 exclamations came from the side. Mediterumi looked puzzled, while Zabuza was faintly excited. At the same time, the 3 finally understood why the 7 ninja swordsmen were sent to the front. The top leaders of Kirigakure were planning to use the 7 ninja swordsmen as the core force to wreak havoc on Konoha village, causing panic on the front line and creating opportunities for victory. Originally, this was a happy thing, but Qishuang couldn't be happy anyway, because he remembered that in the original work, this generation of the 7 ninja swordsmen was completely defeated by one person before entering Konoha village. Moreover, it was a genin that everyone looked down upon. That person was called Might Guy, the father of Might Guy, who later shined in the 4th Ninja World War and almost kicked Uchiha Madara to death. The 7 ninja swordsmen also existed in name, only because of this person. Given the strength of those 7 people, it is very rare for them to go out together, and this collective raid on Konoha village is probably their only one. And judging from the time we are in now is also very close to the time when they encountered Might Guy in the original work. In other words, this surprise attack mission is probably the one when the 7 ninja swordsmen were destroyed. While rushing on the road, thinking at the same time, Qishuang quickly came to the conclusion in his mind. Unfortunately, even if he knew the result, he couldn't change anything, or he didn't have the power to change anything. First of all, the fact that the 7 ninja swordsmen were defeated was already destined in the original work, which is why the Ninja World Warrior appeared on the battlefield later. If this fact is forcibly changed, and the battlefield does not reappear later, it is still a small matter. The fear is that a butterfly effect will occur in the middle, resulting in a series of chain reactions. For example, if the 7 and Might Day had no encounter and went straight into Konoha, if they accidentally killed the father of the 12, that would be a lot of fun. Or, if they accidentally killed Obito, this. If there are too many variables, there are too many variables. In order to maximize the benefits of the known future, Nana Frost has no reason to change the fate of the 7. Moreover, the 8 gates of ninjutsu that Might Day used at the cost of his life has unparalleled power. Even if he wanted to stop it, he didn't have the courage. What's wrong with being alive? He convinced himself in his heart. Therefore, not only can he not think about changing things, but he also has to find a way to stay away from the 7 unlucky guys later. Otherwise, facing the fully opened 8 gates of ninjutsu. No matter how many people they go, they will be sent to the kitchen. Alas. It's really unlucky. Even drinking cold water will get stuck in my teeth. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but sigh. What are you sighing about? Terumi noticed the abnormality of her little friend. Haha. Nothing. Qishuang scratched his head and laughed dryly. It's just that, when I think about it, we didn't rest in the middle of the night and went all the way to attack Konoha village, while others stayed comfortably in the camp and slept. I felt a little unbalanced. Rest? Hearing this, King turned his head and looked at him and then said, do you think the people who stayed behind don't have to do anything? Isn't it? Terumi asked in surprise. Of course not. King shook his head and continued. Konoha village was attacked, and it must be that the front line will receive the news in a short time. Just wait for the Konoha front line to be in chaos, and send troops back to support, and our people will launch a general attack. At that time, everyone will go to the battlefield. Do you think this night's rest is really so comfortable? As he said, he turned back and glanced at the 3 junior subordinates solemnly. Hearing this, Terumi and Zabuza felt a chill on their backs. Compared with the large-scale battlefield melee, they are still more willing to participate in this small-scale battle. Moreover, with the 7 ninja swordsmen as the vanguard, their survival rate will be higher. Nanashiro also showed a look of horror on his face, but his heart was calm. Because he knew that, as long as the 7 died, the front line could not be fought. The plan of the Hidden Mist Village this time can only end in vain. Perhaps, this is fate. It stands to reason that with the strength of the 7 ninja swordsmen, they can indeed run rampant. But who would have thought that they would casually meet a genin outside the Konoha village, and he actually had such a terrible move that he could fight them to a draw. If it weren't for the Kirigakure's later investigation, it was confirmed that Might Day was indeed a genin. The dignified 7 ninja swordsmen were actually beaten and fled by a Konoha genin. No one would believe it if this was said out. Please invest in the new book and recommend it. Big guys! Exclamation mark. Please. Chapter 59 Leaving the team. Stop. King, who was walking in the front, suddenly stopped and raised his hand to signal the people behind to stop. Have you found the people from Konoha? Qishuang asked tentatively. Yes. King stared at the front and whispered, let's change direction. Then, he led 3 small subordinates to detour to the northeast. After seeing King turn forward, many Mist ninjas behind also turned with him. What do you think? I said that these trash are still a little useful, isn't that right? After hearing the news of the turn, the watermelon mountain puffer ghost behind proudly boasted to the 6 companions. There is no doubt that this sudden turn was because King's white eyes found the people from Konoha. Hurry up. I can't wait to kill them all. Tankeo Yebaran ignored his boasting and just urged with a stern face. Seeing that the other companions were also impatient, the watermelon mountain puffer ghost felt that he was asking for trouble, so he had to shut his mouth and quicken his pace. After avoiding nearly 10 secret sentries of Konoha in a row, King led the surprise attack troops and the 7 ninja swordsmen to completely bypass Konoha's defense line. In order to relieve the previous highly nervous mental state, King, as the captain, immediately ordered to rest on the spot. Hey, that boy named King, come here. Zigwish and Puffer Ghost waved to the young captain. Is there anything you want to tell me? King asked with a smile, and that warm smile made people unable to find any fault. He knew very well that, although he was the captain of this surprise attack, it did not mean that he was qualified to command these 7 unruly guys. Moreover, he did not have the strength to remain tough in front of these 7 people. Therefore, he did not dare to be arrogant in front of these 7 people by relying on his status as the captain from beginning to end. Your overall advancement speed is too slow. Zigwish and Puffer Ghost shook his head and said, the 7 of us are going to go ahead and kill people in Konoha first. Then, you just need to catch up and clean up the mess. As he said that, he showed an extremely conceited smile. It was as if the Konoha village was just an ordinary bandit den, and the 7 of them could raze it to the ground with just a flick of their blades. But, King hesitated, feeling that this was not a good idea, but he didn't dare to say it directly. The pufferfish ghost waved his hand and said dissatisfiedly, remember, kid, I'm notifying you, not asking for your consent. Don't think that, just because the headquarters gave you the position of captain, you can give orders to the 7 of us. Don't take yourself too seriously. Then, the 6 people next to him also shouted. That's right, you can get out. Don't waste our time. If you annoy us, I'll use you to sacrifice my beloved ninja sword. Seeing that the 7 people were of the same mind, King knew that, no matter how much he persuaded them, it would be useless, so he had to force his smile and said, then, I wish the 7 adults all the best. Raise Konoha. That's more like it. The watermelon mountain pufferfish ghost nodded, very satisfied. Let's go. He then winked at his 6 companions, and they seemed to have a tacit understanding, and then they all disappeared into the forest with a few leaps. Seeing the 7 big men suddenly leave the team, the Mist Ninjas were suddenly in an uproar. Silence. King shouted angrily, and the crowd suddenly quieted down. He knew that, if he didn't explain to everyone, this team would be difficult to lead. Then, he said loudly to everyone, the 7 ninja sword masters have already rushed to Konoha in advance. Let's rest for another 5 minutes, and then hurry up. They will be in Konoha, waiting for you to appreciate their invincible heroic figures. As soon as King finished speaking, there was another uproar below. Long live. I knew that the 7 masters would not flee from the battlefield. Someone shouted. How is it possible? They are the 7 ninja sword masters. How could they flee from the battlefield? Someone refuted. Let's set off quickly. I can't wait to see Konoha turned into a ruin. Someone urged. After returning to her own team, Terumi immediately approached them and confirmed again. Captain, did the 7 adults really rush to Konoha in advance? Yes. King nodded, but his face was not very good. The 7 adults are really great. In order to reduce our casualties, they actually chose to go ahead. Terumi was deeply moved, and her face was full of joy. You are probably thinking wrong. Qishuang ruthlessly shattered her fantasy and said, I'm afraid that they don't want to be with us at all, and they just think we are a burden. Since the 7 ninja swordsmen came out of the camp earlier, Qishuang noticed that the 7 people looked at them with disgust. In addition, the leader King had just returned from there, with an unhappy face, and he must have suffered a lot of setbacks. He couldn't help but speculate about the 7 people so maliciously. How is it possible? Qishuang is right, they just dislike us. Before Terumi finished speaking, she was interrupted by King. Then, he smiled bitterly and said, if it weren't for my Byakugan that helped them quietly bypass Konoha's defenses, they wouldn't have acted with us at all. From the beginning, they never thought of cooperating with us. His words completely shattered the beautiful fantasy in the little girl's heart, making her extremely uncomfortable. However, after hearing this, Qishuang was secretly delighted. Originally, he was still thinking about how to stay away from those 7 unlucky guys, but he didn't expect that they would despise them and take the initiative to leave the team. This has to be said to be great news. Otherwise, if they really ran into Might Day with those 7 unlucky guys, they would not be able to run away at that time. Okay, it's almost time. Let's go. After calling out to the 3 small subordinates, King gathered all the Mist Ninjas and set off for Konoha again. On the other side, Zigguration Puffer Ghost and his 6 companions, after getting rid of the Mist Ninja surprise attack team, immediately increased their speed by a large margin, and rushed to the direction of Konoha village impatiently. What do you think the people of Konoha will do when they find out we suddenly charge in? Biwa said with a beaming face. He is the owner of the broken sword beheading sword. They will definitely piss their pants and look for their mothers. Tankeo Yebaran followed with a joke. Ha ha ha. Then, a burst of laughter broke out among the 7 people. As for whether Konoha could possibly stop the joint attack of the 7 people, they had never had such doubts. After all, each of them had the power to destroy a small country. They believed that, if the 7 people joined forces, no one could stop them. Even the legendary 3 ninjas couldn't. Not long after, they climbed a hill and saw a huge village bathed in moonlight from afar. To be precise, it would be more appropriate to say that it was a city. The long-awaited Konoha village was about to arrive. Look, there are 3 children down there. Biwa whistled and pointed to a forest path at the foot of the mountain. There, 3 children were carrying packages and walking slowly towards Konoha village. It seemed that he had just completed his mission and was preparing to return to the village to report. Chapter 60 Being Stopped. Part 1. Let the blood of these 3 little guys open the curtain for the 7 of us to appear on stage. Biwajuzang licked his lips with a smile and slowly took off the beheading sword behind him. That's a good idea. Tankeo Yiran nodded with a smile, and then said, why don't we 7 compete to see who can kill those 3 little ghosts first, and get the first prize of this performance. Before he finished speaking, he stepped down from the top of the mountain, like a hunting eagle, bathing in the moonlight, and swooping down to the ground. What a cunning guy. The other 6 people were slightly stunned, and hurriedly fell from the top of the mountain, cursing and chasing after him. It seems that they all agreed with Tankeo Yiran's opinion. On the forest path, 3 little boys were walking slowly towards Konoha village, and they didn't notice the danger coming. Or in other words, no one would have thought that they would encounter an enemy attack so close to Konoha village. Several people walked and talked. In this quiet forest, the war on the border of the fire country seemed so far away from them at this moment. Hey, Genma, Ebisu, when can we go to the battlefield to kill the enemy? My guy, with thick eyebrows and big eyes, complained to his 2 companions next to him, while holding a watermelon head. He is a genin of Konoha. Although he is only good at physical skills, and not very good at other things, he still remembers his father's teachings. Even if you don't know ninjutsu or illusion, as long as you can practice physical skills well, you can also become an excellent ninja. Based on such encouragement, he has been working hard to practice his physical skills until now. It's just that in recent years, Konoha has gone to war with foreign countries, and many people in the village have gone to the battlefield, and even many people have died to protect their homes. Whenever he sees the grieving family members who received the news of the death, he feels heartbroken and wants to fight in person. Unfortunately, their team has not received the transfer order to the battlefield for a long time, but just repeats the trivial chores day after day. This wore away his passion for protecting the village bit by bit. Even his daily physical training lost its passion. Ebisu, who was wearing glasses, pushed the frame of his glasses and whispered, K, war is not as simple as you think. Death is commonplace. If we can choose, I believe no one will be willing to take the initiative to go to the battlefield. We can still safely perform trivial daily tasks in the rear, which is a good job that many people envy. Just be content. Another little boy with 1,000 books in his mouth also followed up to persuade, yeah, K. Don't think about going to the battlefield. I still think I haven't lived enough. Hearing this, Might Guy was furious and said angrily, don't you have any sympathy for those companions who have lost their loved ones? Or are you simply unwilling to repay Konoha's training and are afraid of death? K. You're going too far. Shiranagenma, who was holding 1,000 books in his mouth, frowned. Although it is true that he is afraid of death, it does not mean that he has no feelings for the death of his compatriots and no feelings of gratitude towards Konoha. Seeing that his 2 companions were at loggerheads over this, the little boy with glasses on the other side hurriedly mediated, don't be angry, you 2. Let's talk it over. Then, he turned his head and said solemnly to the little boy with thick eyebrows and big eyes, K, please remember that we are just 3 genin. We are just a bunch of soldiers who can die at any time on the battlefield. For Konoha, our strength is too small and useless. Even if we reluctantly go to the battlefield, it will only cause trouble for everyone. What we can do now is to complete every task assigned by the superiors, so as not to let everyone worry. Reduce everyone's concerns. Looking at his companions' solemn faces, K felt a breath stuck in his chest and was panicked. He couldn't refute, and was powerless to refute. Because he knew that his companions were telling the truth. With their current strength, they would only be a burden after all. Then, he punched a big tree next to him, making the branches rustle. He suppressed his anger and growled, but, I won't accept it. Just as Ebisu, who was wearing glasses, was about to speak to comfort him, a teasing voice came from the forest. Why not? Let me fulfill your wish. The 3 turned their heads and saw several dark figures rushing towards them. In the blink of an eye, one of the figures landed beside K, and under the cold moonlight, an axe-shaped weapon was already raised high. Feeling the oppressive chakra breath and strong murderous aura from the other party, fear climbed into K's heart. Here? How could there be an enemy here? Looking at the cold axe light, he He only had this one thought. Seeing that the enemy's weapon was about to fall, the little boy with glasses shouted hurriedly, and only then awakened his companion, who was frightened by the sudden enemy attack. Unfortunately, it was too late. Facing the oppressive chakra aura and murderous aura, K found that he couldn't move his legs at all, just like a lamb to be slaughtered, unable to do anything. At this moment, he found that his passion was so ridiculous. It had long disappeared without a trace, leaving only the involuntary trembling. Clang! With a crisp collision sound, a man with a red mark on his face held a door-sized sword and blocked the falling axe light. It was Biwajuzo who used the beheading sword to block the Daoki. My guy, who had escaped by chance and was still in shock, took this opportunity to flee to the other side in a hurry. Juzo, you can't stop me. Tankei Oyeron shouted angrily, and in his other hand, a dark hammer was smashing towards the axe. That was the other half of the Daoki. With the combination of the hammer and the axe, he was confident that he could break any defense, even the beheading sword, one of the 7 legendary ninja swords. Since neither of you want the first prize, let me take it. Just then, another sinister voice came from the forest. A large sewing needle more than 1 meter long flew out of the forest and shot directly at the fleeing little boy. That was the long knife sewing needle. Don't even think about it. Thunderblade technique, thunderfall, another angry shout, and then everyone saw a blue arc flashing in the forest, and the huge sewing needle was immediately knocked to the ground by the arc. On the other side, Biwajuzo, who was holding the beheading sword, was very clear about the power of dodge, and naturally did not want to fight it head on, so he slipped and drew his sword to avoid it. Tankei Oyeron's sledgehammer fell on the axe, but the axe blade missed, smashing the ground within a radius of nearly 2 meters. Please recommend all kinds of requests. It's okay if everyone gives me one recommendation vote. It's not too high. Chapter 61 Being Stopped, Part 2. Run. Someone shouted, and Might Guy and the other 2 immediately ran away. Although they hadn't figured out the identity of the person who came, they knew that it must be an enemy, so they had to run. But before the 3 of them took 2 steps, they were blocked by a round figure. Just as they were about to run in another direction, they found that there were suddenly several more figures around them. They were surrounded and had no way to escape. Helplessly, the 3 of them had to stand back to back and take a defensive posture. On the other side, at the entrance of Konoha village, a middle-aged man with thick eyebrows and big eyes, wearing a green tights, was pacing back and forth anxiously at the entrance of the village. His name is My Guy, a Konoha genin, a genin who only knows physical skills. Why haven't you come back yet? He looked to the end of the road, but still didn't see the figure he was expecting. Forget it, just waiting is not a solution. I'd better go out and look for them. Maybe they met some trouble on the way. After thinking for a while, he decided to go out and look for them along the main road. Because he always felt that something was going to happen that night, and his eyelids kept twitching. And the person he was looking for was none other than his son, Might Guy, a child who had just become a genin not long ago. Gay and his friends went out to perform a mission. According to his estimation, they should have arrived at the village by now, but they hadn't returned yet, and he was a little worried. Because of the wars in the past few years, the country was in turmoil, and thieves were rampant. Konoha couldn't spare any manpower to clear them out at this time, so they could only let them go. If Gay met thieves on the road, it was not impossible. So, he decided to go out and look for them. 1, 2, 6, 7. Suddenly surrounded by unknown enemies, the little boy with glasses quietly counted the number of the other side and found that there were 7 people in total, and each of them was holding a very unique weapon. In addition to the ripple mark forehead guards worn by the 7 people, he recalled the records about the Hidden Mist village that he had read before and immediately recognized the identities of the 7 people. The 7, they are the 7 ninja swordsmen of the Hidden Mist. He shouted out loud. Hearing this, K and the other little boy holding 1,000 books in his mouth turned pale. How could they appear here? The little boy holding 1,000 books said tremblingly. Although he had never seen the 7 ninja swordsmen, he had also seen the graphic introduction of the 7 legendary ninja tools and the information, so he quickly confirmed the identities of the 7 people. I didn't expect that even a few Konoha genin had heard of our name, which really surprised me a little. Without continuing to entangle with Tausugasa Ito, Biwajuzo slowly walked over with the beheading sword on his back. If you were a step slower and let me turn the 7 into 6, I think they would be even more surprised. Tausugasa Ito sarcastically said. Seeing that all the members were present, there was no point in taking action. He could only pull the doujin out of the ground in dismay and slowly join the encirclement. With the help of the steel wire, Kirizen Kashimura retrieved the long sword sewing needle that was knocked down by the lightning, and said helplessly, "There are 7 of us, but there are only 3 lambs here. How should we divide them?" Biwajuzang stared at the 3 trembling little boys and grinned. "Just use my beheading sword to cut them into 7 pieces, and each of us can take 1 piece." As he said that, he licked his lips and held the handle behind him again. "You can try to see whether my lightning is faster or your sword is faster." On the other side, the owner of the Thunder Sword Yap, Heichule Yap, touched the 2 long swords with branches in his hands playfully. With a crisp sound, a blue arc of light visible to the naked eye burst out from the blade. Humph. Biwajuzang snorted and released the handle. If it was just Kurachurega, he might have tried to see if he could kill the 3 kids before the other party. But there were 6 ninja sword users besides himself. He didn't have the confidence to achieve his goal with the cooperation of 6 people. If he was not careful, he might die in the hands of his companions. After all, although they were called the 7 ninja swordsmen and looked like a whole, they didn't have any deep friendship with each other. They were just forced together because of the ninja swords. If someone had some strange thoughts, it would not be impossible to kill them suddenly. Just like the previous Tankeo Yabaran. If he was a little slower, he would have been cut in half by the douge. "Old ghost, what do you say we should do?" Miri Shinpachi looked at the round one at the other end. That was the Ziguishin Puffer Demon. Among the 7 of them, the Ziguishin Puffer Demon possessed the big sword Samehada. With the characteristic of Samehada, that it becomes stronger when it encounters a strong opponent. Its strength is faintly the strongest among the 7. Therefore, the Watermelon Mountain Puffer Ghost became the temporary leader of the 7 people. It was most appropriate to give this task of dividing the peach to the other party. They are just 3 hairy kids. What's there to fight about? The Puffer Ghost looked at the 3 people in the encirclement with disdain and said nonchalantly, "Just cut them into pieces with random knives. There are still many lambs waiting to be slaughtered in Konoha village. Don't waste time on them." My Samehada told me that it can't wait to start a massacre. Hearing the unscrupulous killing words of the 7 people, Might Guy and the other 2 couldn't help but feel nervous. "It's not that easy to kill us." The little boy holding the senbon forced himself to cheer up, aimed at the guy who wanted to cut them into 7 pieces, and suddenly spit out the senbon in his mouth. Ding. There was a light sound, like raindrops falling on the lake, and his senbon was easily blocked by the man with the big knife behind him. As if infected by his courage, the little boy with glasses also took out several kunai and whispered, "That's right. Even if you are the famous 7 ninja swordsmen, we have no chance of winning, but we will never stand here and wait for slaughter. We will fight to the last moment, until we stop breathing." As he said that, he aimed at the 7 people and fired 7 detonating kunai respectively. The 2 people's resistance made K, who was in a low mood, gradually regain his fighting spirit. "Xianjian, Ebisu, I'm lucky to be your teammate. If there is another life, I'm willing to be your teammate again." After saying that, Might Guy clenched his fists, and a raging fire of war ignited in his eyes. "This is the Might Guy I know." The little boy without 1,000 books in his mouth gave him a thumbs up. "Don't die in front of me, K." Another little boy pushed the frame of his glasses. Then, the red flames reflected the night sky red, and a deafening roar broke the silence of the night. Unfortunately, the 7 detonating kunai were easily thrown into the night sky by the 7 ninja swordsmen, and they did not suffer any damage at all. On the other side, Might Day, who was out looking for his son, immediately noticed the sudden fire in the night sky and the explosion that followed. Something is happening. His face tightened, and he felt an ominous feeling in his heart. At this time, and in this place, the sudden battle fluctuations are too coincidental. Please vote. 1 vote per person. Multiple votes are okay. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. we cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62 Arrival. I have to go and take a look. With a thought, Maite made a decision immediately. Whether the person fighting over there is his son or someone else, he can't just stand by and watch him die. Moreover, the battle that took place outside Konoha is likely to be Konoha's companions. He really needs to go and take a look. 8 gates of ninjutsu, 6th gate of Jingmen, open. Time waits for no one. He immediately used his secret technique to open the Jingmen, one of the 8 gates, and an amazing chakra fluctuation burst out from his body. His eyes rolled back, his skin flushed, his black hair stood upside down, and the whole person was shrouded in a green aura. In a trance, he had an indescribable wildness and mania. This is the power of the 8 gates. As we all know, the 8 gates of the human body contain extremely strong power. Therefore, many people try to improve their abilities by opening the 8 gates. Maite is one of them. But opening the 8 gates is not that simple, and the power gained by opening the 8 gates is obtained by overdrawing the body, which will cause a great burden on the body. Therefore, studying how to open the 8 gates, how to control the power of the 8 gates, and how to reduce the load on the body, became an obstacle to using the power of the 8 gates. Maite did not know ninjutsu or illusion, he only knew taijutsu, so he spent his entire life on using the power of the 8 gates. Hard work pays off. After 20 years of practice, he was able to open the 8 gates freely and control their power flexibly. This move became his trump card. Now, in order to rush to the battlefield over there, he used this move without hesitation. Because if it was K fighting over there, if he went too late, he would probably see some regrettable results. He didn't want this. Then, Maite, who opened the 8 gates, turned into a green stream of light and rushed straight to the battlefield over there with his body speed and strength greatly improved. On the other side, after the 7 ninja swordsmen detonated the 7 detonating kunai, they saw the 3 little boys with high morale and all wanted to tease them. Therefore, they all seemed to have tacitly agreed not to attack immediately, but just passively resisted the weak offensive of the 3 men. Occasionally, they would lightly counterattack and throw the 3 men away. In a few hits, the 3 men were covered in wounds and panting. Of course, they were all injured by falling, not by the 7 men's direct attack. Seeing that their attacks had no effect at all, and the 7 opponents were still calm and composed, Might Guy and the other 2 couldn't help but feel desperate. It's almost done. Let's finish them off. Looking at the full moon above his head, the watermelon mountain puffer ghost said coldly. Biwajuzo came out and tried to test everyone. Have you had enough fun? If you have, I will chop the 3 of them. The other 5 people didn't say a word. Earlier, they all wanted to grab the prize, but it was just like a cat playing with a mouse. After playing, they suddenly felt bored, so they were too lazy to compete with him. Kids, we are tired of playing with you. So, you better go to hell. Seeing that no one objected, Juzo rushed towards the 3 people with his beheading sword. At this time, Zigwashan Puffer Ghost sensed a strange breath. What is that? He saw a green stream of light shooting rapidly in the forest. 100 meters away, it arrived in an instant. He vaguely saw a figure in the green light. Before he could remind them, the figure wrapped in green light had already rushed into the encirclement of 7 people. He kicked Biwajuzo who was about to attack the 3 children. What? Biwajuzo, who was about to behead the 3 children, was also surprised to see the sudden appearance of the figure. He was surprised by the sudden appearance of the other party and the terrifying speed of the other party. Knowing that he could not avoid this flying kick, he had to forcibly retract the sword and hold the wide beheading sword across his chest, hoping to block the other party's fierce kick. Ding. The man kicked the blade of the beheading sword. Biwajuzo was not happy at all, because the opponent kicked out with such a terrifying speed that the impact force it carried was far beyond his endurance. In just a moment, he bent his arms and the beheading sword was pressed on his body by the opponent. Although the force was reduced a lot after being buffered and intercepted by the blade, when the blade was pressed on him by the opponent, the aftermath of the impact still caused him to feel severe pain in his internal organs. Then, he and his sword were kicked out like a cannonball in an instant. Sensing the amazing aura of the visitor and the sudden encounter of Biwajuzo, the other 6 ninja sword users did not act easily, but silently clenched the ninja swords in their hands. Who are you? Zigwashin Puffer Ghost, the temporary leader, frowned and asked loudly. The green figure stretched out his left hand, put his right hand behind his back, and made a physical technique starter. He replied coldly, Konoha Genin, my guy. Genin? Hearing this, all the ninja swordsmen felt a little incredible. Because the aura emanating from the opponent at this time completely surpassed that of most Jonins, and he was a truly powerful enemy. If such a person is still a Genin, then what should Konoha's Jonin look like? Then the Hidden Mist Village should simply stop fighting with Konoha Village and surrender directly. There is no doubt that the opponent is lying. At this moment, no ninja swordsman naively thought that Might Guy was really a Genin. Dat! Might Guy exclaimed. When the green figure called out his name, he also recognized his father's identity. At the same time, he also recalled the special move his father had taught him, the 8 Gates of Dungia. And now, the green aura emanating from his father's body is the green steam produced by the evaporation of sweat after the 8 gates are opened. You go, I'll stop them. Might Day didn't look back, but just protected the 3 people tightly behind him, his eyes constantly moving back and forth between the 6 enemies. Facing these guys whose auras far exceeded those of ordinary Jonin, he didn't dare to be careless. But, Uncle Might Day, they are the 7 ninja swordsmen of Kirigakure, not ordinary Jonin at all. With your Genin strength, you can't stop them at all. The little boy with glasses reminded loudly. He subconsciously ignored the scene where Might Day kicked Biwajuzo away just now. He thought it was just the result of Might Day's sneak attack and the other part is carelessness. No matter who they are, I will stop them here and let you leave safely. Looking at the enemies around him, Might Day's tone was still very firm. Who do you think you are? With a roar, Biwajuzo rushed out of the forest again with a beheading sword. However, there was a visible crack on the blade of the beheading sword. Obviously, that was the result of Might Day's previous kick. Later, I will open a separate chapter to talk about the 8 gates and the 8 gates of ninjutsu. Chapter 63 Sweep, Part 1. Are you okay? Zigwashin Puffer Ghost asked him solemnly. I'm not going to die. Biwajuzo wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, stared at the green figure, and strode back to the encirclement. Although he said it lightly, only he knew in his heart that the opponent's kick just now had already injured his internal organs. If it weren't for the beheading sword blocking it, I'm afraid that the blow would have killed him. Then, he touched the cracks on the beheading sword and said to the green figure, since you broke my sword, use your blood to repair it. Ignoring Biwajuzo's provocation, Might Guy carefully guarded everyone and urged the 3 people behind him again, go. Leave this to me. But Dad, you can't be a match for the 7 of them. Might Guy exclaimed. K. Don't worry, Dad has a way to stop them. Might Guy turned back briefly and gave his son a confident smile. Suddenly, Might Guy seemed to remember something and said anxiously, no. Dad, you can't use that move. K. Listen to me. Might Guy's dull and heavy voice, like a cool summer breeze, blew away his anxiety, and K suddenly calmed down. Carefully guarding against the enemies around him, Might Guy slowly said, I once told you that move can't be used easily, but I never told you what the conditions for using that move are. Now, I can tell you. You are only qualified to use that move when you are protecting your most precious thing. And for Dad, you are Dad's most precious treasure. 8 gates of ninjutsu, the 8th gate of death, open. Before he finished speaking, Might Guy's body burst out with a chakra breath that was countless times stronger than before. The green steam on his body also turned red as the sunset. Although he didn't practice it himself, K knew clearly that the red steam was formed by the evaporation of blood. Stop. On the other side, just as Might Guy opened the 8th death gate, King, who was 1,000 meters away, also sensed the unusual chakra aura. He immediately signaled everyone to stop. Did you find anything, Captain? Terumi Mei asked curiously. King did not answer, but silently opened the power of insight of the Byakugan. There should be strong people fighting in front. Qishuang said with a serious face. Ah. Terumi Mei looked over in confusion. Look. Qishuang pointed to a forest in the distance. There, countless birds were startled under the bright moonlight. Fighting is fighting. What's there to be nervous about? We have 1,000 people here. Terumi Mei said nonchalantly. No. That's not an ordinary battle. Qishuang shook his head and continued. Animals' sense of danger is more acute than ours. The aura alone can wake up birds within a radius of nearly 1,000 meters. The intensity of the battle over there is extraordinary. At this point, he had a vague guess in his heart. At this moment, King's white eyes saw the situation on the battlefield over there. It was the 7 ninja swordsmen fighting with an unknown guy, and it seemed that they were at a disadvantage. In order to avoid causing panic, he didn't say much, but just ordered everyone to move forward at full speed. At the same time, from the moment the green steam turned red, the airflow around Mighty suddenly exploded, and immediately blew the 3 little boys away. Even before the 7 ninja swordsmen who surrounded them could react, the 3 children had already flown out of the encirclement. Leave them behind. Zigwashin Puffer Ghost shouted instinctively. Before he finished speaking, Kurishin Kishimaru immediately threw the long sword sewing needle in his hand, aiming at the 3 little boys who had just landed not far away and were knocked unconscious. At the same time, Kurachurega on the other side also knocked the 2 thunder sword jab in his hand. Thunder release thunderball, only to see the top of the 2 ninja swords quickly condensed into a basin-sized ball of light composed of electric arcs. Go. He controlled the lightning ball and shot it at the 3 little boys outside the encirclement. The lightning ball was extremely fast. Although Kurachurega's movements were a bit slower than Kura's and Kishimaru's, the lightning ball reached the target first than the large sewing needle-like ninja sword. Just when everyone thought that the 3 little boys were doomed, they saw that Might Day, who was glowing red, flashed and rushed in front of the lightning ball at an even more terrifying speed, blocking the 3 children. What an amazing speed! Kurizen Kishimaru exclaimed. Among the 7 people, because the longsword sewing needle is more suitable for people with agility, his speed should be the fastest among the 7. But even he couldn't see the opponent's movements clearly, and the opponent had already moved a position. What surprised the 7 people even more was still behind. They saw Might Day punching the lightning ball without changing his expression. There was a loud bang, and the thunderball exploded. Arcs of electricity shot out, dazzling and bright. In a short moment, the night sky of the grove was illuminated, as if it were daytime. Even the longsword stitch following the thunderball was shaken back by the sudden explosion of the thunderball. Why don't you leave quickly? Seeing that the little boys on the ground seemed to be dumbfounded, Might Guy couldn't help but shout again. Hearing his voice, the 3 of them immediately came back to their senses. No, Dad, Might Guy called out, still reluctant to leave. If you don't want to leave, then don't leave. Watermelon Mountain Puffer Ghost took off the long sword Samehuda on his back and rushed straight up. Kenma, Ebisu, you 2 take K away. Throwing down this sentence, Might Guy went to meet his opponent. Let's go, K. Ebisu, who was wearing glasses, helped the little boy with thick eyebrows and big eyes up and persuaded him to leave. But, looking at the red figure, Might Guy burst into tears. Let's go, I'll leave this to you. Shiranu Xianjian winked at his companions, and the 2 of them immediately held Might Guy in the middle and forced him to flee. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared into the grove. The 6 people not far away saw it, but did not deliberately stop them. Because Might Guy's previous 2 attacks had proved that his speed was far faster than the 7 people present. At this terrifying speed, they had no way to stop the 3 children. Instead of wasting time on the 3 children, it would be more practical to kill this Konoha master who was far superior to ordinary Jonin. On the other side, Might Guy punched the bandaged weapon that was chopped over without any fancy moves. Humph, I was afraid that you wouldn't use force. Seeing this, Zigwashin Puffer Ghost was secretly delighted. Because the big sword Samehuda in his hand can absorb the opponent's chakra and then transfer it to the holder. He is the type who becomes stronger when facing a strong opponent. Therefore, he is never afraid of close combat with others, let alone head-on confrontation with others. This is also the reason why he can become the temporary captain of the 7 ninja swordsmen. Bang! Mighty's first hit Samehuda. Then, the chakra absorbed by Samehuda came to the handle of the sword, but before the Puffer Ghost could be happy, a huge force followed. He couldn't hold the handle of the sword at all, and Samehuda slipped out of his hand, turned back, and hit him. Puff. He only felt a sweetness in his throat, and a mouthful of blood spurted out, dyeing the white bandage on Samehuda's body red. How could this happen? There was only endless fear in his heart, because, with just one punch, he was severely injured. Then, under the huge force, he was immediately beaten into the grove with full of doubts and fear. There was a loud bang, and a large number of trees collapsed in the forest, and there was no more movement. He was knocked unconscious. Without even a second look at his opponent who was knocked away, Might Daisy used his extreme speed to instantly rush to another Miss Ninja holding an axe and a hammer. Then, he punched down without any fancy moves. Boom. Tao Sao Yato had no time to dodge, and could only put the Dao on his head in an attempt to block the opponent's attack. Unfortunately, he overestimated himself. He only felt an irresistible force pressing down from the Dao, and then the handle of the knife slipped out of his hand. Something fell on his head, and he completely lost consciousness. With all 8 gates open, a casual punch or kick has great power, and killing people is like killing a chicken. Everyone, it's time to vote. Chapter 64 Sweep, Part 2. Takusa Yato is dead. In front of everyone, his head was smashed by Might Day with one punch. It was like a watermelon being smashed, with red and white spilled all over the ground. Before the other 5 ninja swordsmen could even react, his headless body spurted blood and fell to the ground unwillingly. How is it possible? Miri Shinpochi and others widened their eyes in horror. They, the 7 ninja swordsmen, have been rampant for a long time. Although they are not invincible in the ninja world, they claim to be hard to beat, and they can fight even against the legendary 3 ninjas. Today, in the outskirts of Konoha, it would be fine to encounter a super strong nameless genin. Unexpectedly, the opponent's strength is far beyond the imagination of several people. Takusa Yato didn't even last a single move under the opponent's hands, and his head was blown up with just one punch, which really caught them off guard. It's really too strong. Biwajuzo subconsciously glanced at the crack on the beheading sword. At this moment, the crack seemed to come alive and quickly spread into his heart, and an indescribable fear crept into his heart. Even the hand holding the hilt of the knife trembled slightly. He knew that he was afraid. But even if he knew, he had no way to dispel this fear, because he really didn't know how to defeat this terrifying opponent who could kill a ninja sword user in one blow. On the other side, after killing an opponent with one punch, Might Day didn't rush to attack again. Because the effect of power is mutual. Although the 2 consecutive punches just now created extraordinary results, his right arm was also seriously injured by the recoil force. For some reason, he punched the bandage weapon earlier, and a lot of chakra was leaked, and the power was reduced a lot, so he only blew away the opponent, but did not kill him directly. But just now, he was really hitting the opponent's weapon with all his strength. Although he killed the opponent with a punch to the head, his fist was made of flesh after all, and could not compare with the opponent's weapon. His arm bone was directly broken, and his 5 fingers were a bloody mess. He knew in his heart that he might not be able to use his right hand. Is this the power brought by opening the 8 gates? He glanced at his right arm inconspicuously, feeling very emotional. Everyone knows that once the 8 gates are opened, they can gain unparalleled power, but no one knows how strong this power is. Or perhaps, those who know, or have seen it are all dead. That's why it is difficult to find detailed records about the 8 gates. And because the effect of the 8th death gate is to consume the host's life, once it is opened, it cannot be closed, and the host will die due to exhaustion of vitality. So this is the first time he has experienced the power of opening the 8 gates. Although he was mentally prepared, he still underestimated the terrifying power obtained by burning life. This power is already beyond his limit, and even his own bones cannot bear the load of this power. If he is not careful, he will break his bones because of excessive force. Fortunately, the purpose of the first door opening is to remove the restrictions of the brain area and allow oneself to fully control one's own physical abilities, so he can use this sudden terrifying power freely. He will not become a cripple because of the inability to control this power. Then, he glanced at several ninja swordsmen not far away and said to himself, there are still 5. I hope I can kill them all before my life is exhausted. Seeing the red figure's eyes turn over, the remaining few people all felt a pang in their hearts. No one knows who the opponent's next target will be, and they are really not sure that they can block that terrifying attack. they can only pray silently that the next unlucky person is not themselves. As for escaping, they have thought about it, but the discipline of the Hidden Mist Village is strict, and deserting in the face of battle is a felony. In addition, the main force of this surprise attack is the 7 of them. Deserting in the face of battle, resulting in the failure of the surprise attack, the punishment they face may be more uncomfortable than death. Moreover, with the speed of that person, they can't escape at all. Instead of trying to escape, it is better to fight hard. What if they managed to kill that guy by chance? Everyone thought so. Go. Someone suddenly shouted, and the 5 people on the field attacked together. Explosive sword ninja technique. Explosion Miri Shinpachi waved the explosive sword, spraying foam and saw a long scroll flying out of the blade. A closer look showed that it was full of detonating talismans, and in an instant, the red figure was trapped inside. Long sword ninja technique. Earth Spider Seam Kurizen Kishimaru held the handle of the sword with one hand and gently hooked the steel wire extending from the handle with the other hand. Suddenly, a large crisscrossing net rose up on the ground, a net woven by steel wire. Might Guy was trapped in it. No one knew when he buried the steel wire in the ground. Thunder Sword Technique. Thundergate Kuroki Rager inserted the 2 swords in his hands into the ground. Guided by chakra, a blow-arc of electricity suddenly struck down from the night sky, and the target was Might Guy in the field. Tay-Tay Liberation. Another Mist Ninja holding a fan-shaped ninja sword injected chakra into the dual sword's Tay-Tay and swung it hard at the red figure. Suddenly, a light blue blade of light grew on the blade. The blade of light grew in the wind and shot straight at Might Day. Water style water dragon bullet technique. Biwajuzo's eyes flickered. He suppressed the urge to escape and quickly formed a seal to perform a ninjutsu. A column of water rose from behind him and then condensed into a dragon shape, whistling straight at Might Day in the field. The 5 people joined forces. Although there was a difference in the time of casting the spell, in general, the offensive was connected without any gap. For a moment, the field was full of flames, lightning snakes were rampant, and there was a water dragon and a blade of light interspersed in between, completely submerging the terrifying red figure. Is this the end? Feeling the violent impact in the field, everyone thought so. But at this moment, a scream suddenly came. Several people looked in the direction of the sound and saw that Might Day had punched through the chest of the holder of the double blade flat tire. You are too slow, Might Day said coldly, enduring the severe pain and slowly pulling out another broken arm, looking at the other 4 people. At this moment, his 8 gates were fully opened, and his speed was already extremely fast. If it weren't for his body's limited endurance, he could have made the speed even faster. The target that several people just attacked was just the afterimage left by his high-speed movement, and he didn't even touch the corner of his clothes. However, the tyrannical force also brought a great burden. Every time he made a move, he needed to adjust his state again. Otherwise, it would be easy for his body to collapse. I didn't find the name of the user of double blade flat tire. I guess Kishimoto forgot to give it. In addition, he was a supporting role, so I was too lazy to give him a name. Chapter 65 Sweep, Part 2. Looking up at the 4 people who were terrified, Mighty felt a little regretful. The enemy didn't know his physical condition, but he knew it clearly. Once the 8th death gate was opened, it meant that the host's life would enter a countdown. He felt that the fire of his life was about to go out. Although in this state, each of his attacks had irresistible power, but the remaining strength was not enough to kill all 4 people. If I could create a specific move that matches this 8 gates of ninjutsu and perfectly exert the power of the 8 gates, today would definitely not be such a regrettable ending. What a pity, what a pity. He sighed secretly. One's own family knows one's own business. Apart from his slight achievements in physical skills, he is not good at anything else. It can be said that he is a type of person with dull talent. It took him 20 years just to practice this 8 gates of ninjutsu. It was beyond his ability to create a move that matches the power of the 8 gates. Maybe K can make up for the regret of the 8 gates. He moved carefully, looking for an opportunity to attack, and thought silently. Like him, his son K was not good at anything other than physical skills, but K's talent in physical skills was much stronger than his. He had every reason to believe that in the days to come, K could slowly make up for the shortcomings of the 8 gates and create moves that matched the power of the 8 gates. On the other side, seeing that Might Day was unscathed and took the opportunity to kill a companion, the remaining 4 ninja swordsmen were already confused. How could they not understand that the opponent must have relied on his terrifying speed to dodge their joint attack when the attack was about to hit him? Otherwise, even the tailed beast Jinchuriki, who was known as a weapon of war, could not be unscathed after taking the full force of 5 ninja swordsmen. The attack was very powerful, which was easy to say, as long as he dodged it, but the key was that the opponent's speed was also extremely fast. Even the lightning of Kuroki Rega could be dodged. They really didn't know what kind of moves they should use to really hit such an enemy. How could they avoid the opponent's attack? They were really scared. At this moment, facing an unknown genin, the famous 7 ninja swordsmen had the heart to retreat. At the same time, 3 more children appeared on the road outside Konoha village. One of them looked dazed, and 2 companions were carrying him to the entrance of the village in a hurry. They were the 3 Might Guys who were rescued by Might Guy. K. Don't be sad. We will enter the village soon. When the time comes, we can find a reinforcement, Uncle Might Guy. Ebisu, who was wearing glasses, said to the companion in the middle with concern. Yes, yes, yes. Hearing this, Shiranagenma on the other side also nodded and added, maybe, everything is still in time. Hearing the comfort of the 2, Might Guy, who was carried in the middle, seemed to have regained his vitality. Tears like beads kept falling down and murmured, it's too late. It's too late. What's too late? Ebisu was slightly stunned and asked in surprise. Might Guy slowly pulled his arms out of the shoulders of his 2 companions, staggered forward 2 steps, and cried, Dad. Dad used a forbidden technique at the cost of his life to cover us, and there is no hope. Although it was the first time he saw the red steam, he could easily guess that it was the product of his father opening the last of the 8 gates. Because he had seen the first to the 7th gates, but he had never seen the 8th gate that was forbidden by his father. Moreover, he clearly remembered that the scroll of 8 gates of Dungia given to him by his father stated that once the 8th gate of death was opened, it was irreversible. In this state, the caster will gain power by burning his life until death. How could this be? Shiranagenma and Ebisu were stunned. They thought that Might Guy had suddenly become so powerful because he had used some self-destructive forbidden technique. But they didn't expect that this was not as simple as self-destruction, but exchanging life for power. Let's go. Might Guy wiped his tears, forced himself to cheer up, and said to his 2 bewildered companions, no matter what, we must report the news of the attack of the 7 ninja swordsmen first. Dad's sacrifice cannot be in vain. As he said this, he choked up again. Soon, the top leaders of Konoha received the urgent information brought back by the 3 people. In the Hokage's office, just as Sarutobi Hirozen was mobilizing people, a young ninja with short sleeves and a sword on his back knelt on one knee in front of him. Hokage, let me go meet the 7 ninja swordsmen first. As he said this, the young man raised his head, revealing 2 red eyes, and around the pupils, 3 black magatama slowly swirled. You. The 3rd generation held a pipe in his mouth and looked at the young man solemnly, but did not answer, as if thinking about something. The young ninja bowed his head again and said, because of the 2-front war, the village's defense is very empty, and the manpower is extremely tight. We can't mobilize many people at all. Considering that the opponent is the 7 ninja swordsmen, it is not an ordinary enemy at all, so more people are needed to fight. If you send me, you won't have such a headache when mobilizing manpower. After hearing his words, the 3rd generation exhaled a long puff of smoke. His face relaxed, as if he had made a decision, and said softly, well, let you stop them first. Then, he instructed, the 7 ninja swordsmen are not ordinary opponents. Don't be careless. If things are impossible, don't force it. Reinforcement will be here soon. Yes. The young ninja nodded and disappeared in the Hokage's office in an instant. Then, the 3rd generation began to mobilize manpower again. In the forest, Might Day ran around the remaining 4 people at a very fast speed, scaring the 4 people to stay close together and carefully guard around. Once upon a time, the 7 ninja swordsmen who were rampant in the area, now, are scared like 4 mice curled up in the corner, and the previous high spirits are gone. Just when Might Day circled to a certain angle, He found an excellent attack position. Since my hands can no longer be used, I will use my legs. He took a step forward and launched an attack again. Power prelude with the extreme speed brought by the full opening of the 8 gates. He instantly rushed towards Mirishinpachi, who was holding the explosive blade flying foam, and kicked him in the air. Why me? Seeing the flash of red light, Mirishinpachi was full of resentment. He couldn't understand why the other party would choose him. Although he knew that he was very likely to not be able to block the other party's attack, he was still unwilling to sit there and wait for death. He instinctively wanted to block the explosive blade flying foam in front of his chest, but unfortunately he was still a step too late. A foot with a red glow was already in front of him. At the same time, seeing Might Day select his target, the other 3 seemed to have a tacit understanding. Not only did they not take advantage of the situation to counterattack, but they quickly dispersed and fled outside. In the end, the fear of death overcame reason. They really didn't know how to defeat such a terrifying opponent. So, they could only flee. Chapter 66 ending. You guys. Upon noticing the other companions running away, Mirishinpachi's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. He originally thought that when Might Day aimed at him, the other few would take advantage of the situation to counterattack. In that case, even if he died at the hands of the other party, he could drag the other party down with him. However, the actions of the other 3 people were like pouring a basin of cold water on his head, which made him completely cold from the inside out. At this moment, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest, and a red and burning foot had sunk into his chest. Puff. Blood rushed to his throat, and he couldn't help but spray it at the figure in front of him. Hiss. The weak and powerless blood flower had not really landed on Might Day's body. As soon as it touched the layer of red aura outside the other party's body, an astonishing heat evaporated and completely dissipated in the air. Then, he felt as if he was hit by a small mountain that suddenly flew over, and even the momentum of delaying the other party's impact seemed so pale and powerless. The red figure, pushing his body, flew straight back. An excited middle-aged voice came to his ear. Youth is about moving forward. Never stop. Hearing this sudden shout, the 3 fleeing people turned back and saw that Mirishinpachi was hit by a red stream of light and then turned into a part of it, shining in the night sky like a meteor. What? Looking at the red meteor, Kirizen Kishimaru was scared to death. Because the meteor was flying towards him. In just a moment, the remaining distance from him was less than 3 meters. On the other side, seeing Might Day aiming the next target at Kirizen Kishimaru, Kuroki Reiga and Miwajuzo breathed a sigh of relief. Because this way, they had enough time to escape. Then, they quickened their pace and disappeared into the dense forest in the blink of an eye. Let us die together. Seeing that there was no escape, Kirizen Kishimaru had to risk his life. He immediately clenched the large sewing needle in his hand and performed another ninjutsu. Longsword ninjutsu, heavenly spider web. In an instant, he used the steel wire of the longsword, sewing needle and the surrounding trees as stakes to form a huge steel wire net in front of him. He knew that he could not withstand this fierce attack, so he could only use this spider web made of steel wire to attack instead of defend. Even if the opponent's attack could kill him through the spider web, he could use the opponent's attack momentum to use the steel wire to cut the opponent into pieces. Because he was confident in the toughness of this spider web. Although the steel wire of the longsword sewing needle looks very thin, its toughness is far beyond the steel wire used by ordinary ninjas. At least, he has never encountered an opponent who broke it. Therefore, he is fully confident that he can die with the opponent with this spider web. Unfortunately, the expected situation did not occur. The red meteor came with a gust of wind, and the huge wind pressure formed a thick air barrier on its surface. The spider web of Kirizen Kishimaru did not come into direct contact with the meteor at all, but was blocked by the air film. There was only a click, but it was the spider web under the impact of the strong wind pressure, and the steel wire cut the tree trunk used as the stake. The red meteor hit him with the spider web. The violent airflow shattered his mask and blocked his mouth and nose. He didn't even have the chance to cry out in pain before he was knocked away by the red meteor. Boom. After a burst of crackling sounds of trees breaking, the red meteor hit the ground and extinguished the fire. Only a deep pit with a radius of nearly 10 meters and a road more than 3 meters wide was left, which was formed by the red meteor passing through the forest. In the pit, Woolie Jinpachi and Kurishin Kishimaru were forcibly squeezed together by an unimaginable force, like two pieces of meat patties. Blood was flowing all over the ground, and there was no breath anymore. Only those two pairs of eyes were still unwillingly open and angry to prove that they had lived. Not far away, there was a charred human figure lying. That was Might Day. The 8th Death Gate extracted the vitality of all his cells and converted it into temporary power. The result was that all his cells were irreversibly damaged. Now he was like a dry old tree that could no longer sprout or grow branches. He was on the verge of death and was in his last moments. Have Kei and the others returned to Konoha village safely? They should have arrived, right? It's a pity that I can't have dinner with him tonight. I really want to see the day when he grows up. I really want to. Might Day's thoughts were like a kite with a broken string, flying into an unknown space and never seen again. He was dead. On the other side, with the help of the powerful insight of the Byakugan, King saw the entire battle process clearly. When he saw the first ninja swordsman die on the spot, he was also stunned. He believed that there were people in the ninja world who could defeat the ninja swordsman, but he never thought that someone could kill a ninja swordsman so easily. This was totally beyond his expectation. Afterwards, when the second ninja swordsman died, it completely aroused his sense of urgency. He hurriedly ordered everyone to move forward quickly. Hurry up, faster. As for the reason for the rapid advance, he did not dare to mention it. If everyone knew that the invincible ninja swordsman 7 was being slaughtered by one person and was facing the crisis of annihilation, it would undoubtedly have a great impact on his commander. Fortunately, after killing 4 people in a row, the unknown guy lost his chakra fluctuations and died completely, which made him feel relieved. Although rescuing the ninja swordsman 7 was a helpless act, he did not want to face that terrible guy. He really couldn't imagine what price his 1,000 people had to pay to defeat such a terrifying opponent. Such a result would not only allow them to avoid a direct confrontation with him, but also help the remaining ninja swordsmen. It can be said that he was extremely satisfied. Unfortunately, 4 of the 7 ninja swordsmen died inexplicably before entering Konoha village. After returning, all of them were inevitably punished by the higher-ups. Because, even in the Hidden Mist village, there were not many strong men of the same level as the ninja swordsmen. It was hard to send them out to perform a mission, but 4 of them were lost. There was really no way to explain to the higher-ups. What was even more terrible was that King saw Kuroho Reiga and Biwajuzo deserting from the battlefield. He didn't think these two had the courage and guts to go back and face the crime. Because the punishment rules of the Hidden Mist village were extremely harsh, which would be more terrifying than death. This meant that these two people had decided to completely betray the Hidden Mist village and become a rebel ninja, since they deserted from the battlefield. For the Hidden Mist village, this surprise attack had no meaning to continue. Of the 7 ninja swordsmen, 4 died in battle, 2 defected, and 1 was seriously injured. The most core combat power was inexplicably abolished. If they insisted on a surprise attack, it would only increase casualties. Well, the endings of the 7 people were arranged properly and neatly. Chapter 67 Tragic. Beside him, Qishuang, who had been urged to speed up, was worried. Because he knew that the 2 sides fighting in front were most likely the 7 ninja swordsmen and Might Day. He knew better than anyone the power of the 8 gates of ninja when fully activated, and he really didn't want to rush into such a dangerous battlefield. However, he really couldn't find an excuse to get out. As he accelerated towards the battlefield, he also felt that unusual chakra. It was an extremely manic breath, like a ferocious beast raging over there. This made him more certain that Might Day had opened the 8th death gate. At the same time, some people in the surprise attack team behind him also gradually sensed the unusual chakra. There were whispers below. Suddenly, Qishuang felt that the breath weakened rapidly and then quickly dissipated, and he could no longer sense it. Could it be that the time limit of the 8 gates has expired? He guessed silently. The situation in front of him could only be explained by the fact that Might Day's life was exhausted and he had died. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, and the big stone in his heart finally fell to the ground. What's wrong with you? Mediterumi beside him glanced at him and asked curiously, from just now, I felt that you were not quite right. Are you feeling unwell? No, no. Qishuang waved her hand and replied with a smile, I just happened to think of some difficulties in cultivation and just figured out the problem. Really? Mediterumi showed a look of disbelief. After a long time of getting along, she found that this companion was really interesting, much more interesting than the wooden Zabuza. He could always think of something they couldn't think of. Therefore, she didn't believe such a perfunctory answer at all. However, since the other person didn't want to say it, she had no choice but to slap him hard. As the distance from the battlefield became shorter and shorter, a clearing that had been ravaged by the explosion soon appeared in front of everyone. On the clearing, there were one or two charred tree trunks, which looked like they had been struck by lightning. In addition, there were two bloody corpses lying on the ground. After inspection, one of them had his head blown up, and the other had his chest pierced. Although the mixture of blood plasma and mud made it impossible to see their original faces and identify their identities, the people still recognized them based on the weapons in their hands. They were the holders of the blunt knife Daoki and the double knife flatfish. Then, there was an uproar in the crowd. How could it be? How could they die here? Although the facts were in front of them, some people were still reluctant to believe it. The invincible ninja sword 7 would be killed. Oh my god. What on earth happened to them? Did they run into the legendary 3 ninjas? Someone speculated in horror. However, in their impression, the legendary 3 ninjas should not be much stronger than the ninja sword 7. With the 7 people joining forces, no one should be killed. They really couldn't figure it out. At the edge of the open space, there was a very rough passage, with tree trunks lying in all directions on both sides, as if some giant beast had forced its way through. The 4 men of Qishuang rushed along the passage and saw a large pit with a radius of nearly 10 meters. There were 3 bodies lying in the pit. Among them, Miri Shinpachi and Kurishi Kashimaru were tightly together, and their clothes were stained red with blood. King walked over carefully and stretched out his finger in front of the 2 to test their breath. Captain, what's the situation? Terumi Mei asked nervously. Retracting his finger, King sighed and shook his head. Both are dead. Although he had already seen the death of the 2 with his white eyes, he still wanted to verify it again at a close distance. What if there is still hope? Unfortunately, no miracle happened. The 4 ninja swordsmen who fell here all lost their lives and there was no possibility of rescue. There is another one here, but I don't know who he is. Pointing to the charred remains not far away on the ground, Zabuza whispered. That's a Konoha person, not one of the 7 ninja swordsmen. King shook his head. Konohas? Terumi Mei was a little surprised. She looked back and saw that the man was burned black, as if he had been burned to charcoal. Most of his clothes were burned, and the entire surface of his skin was fuzzy, and even had a faint smell of meat. But when she thought that this was human flesh, she felt very disgusted, and almost vomited the dinner she had eaten earlier. He is indeed from Konoha. Nanashin pulled off a strand of residue from the other's neck, and a piece of iron fell to the ground with a slight sound. He used a kunai to scrape off the ashes on the surface of the iron sheet, revealing a bird's beak-shaped mark underneath. Obviously, this is a Konoha ninja forehead protector. It is indeed from Konoha. Zabuza nodded. Could it be that he was beaten like this by the Thunderblade Ya? Mediterumi asked curiously. She could only associate such injuries with lightning and fire. Among the 7 ninja sword users, the holder of the Thunderblade Ya happened to be able to control lightning, so it was not surprising that such injuries could be caused. No. King shook his head and whispered, just now, I just saw the process of his death with the help of the Byakugan. He was not beaten into this state by the Thunderblade Ya, but he changed into this state by himself. I guess he must have used some kind of suicidal forbidden technique. Then, he broke another terrifying news. It was with this forbidden technique that he killed our 4 ninja swordsmen. What? Hearing this news, Zabuza and Mediterumi almost dropped their jaws. Originally, they thought that the famous 7 ninja swordsmen must have encountered a powerful enemy like the legendary 3 ninjas, which caused such casualties. But King's words completely overturned their imagination. They really couldn't believe that he could kill 4 of the 7 ninja swordsmen on the spot with his own strength. Such a person, or such a forbidden technique, is really too terrifying. On the other hand, although Nanashiro had long known the power of the 8 gates of Dungia, in order not to arouse suspicion from others, he still had to pretend to be surprised. He even dared not mention the matter of the 8 gates of Dungia. He could only show the appropriate surprise like Zabuza and Meditarumi. Then, King pointed in a direction and instructed a small team next to him. The watermelon mountain puffer ghost was beaten seriously and is lying over there. You should go and bring him back for treatment. Yes. The leader of the Mist Ninja responded and immediately led the team to find the direction indicated by King. Then, what about the whereabouts of the other 2 ninja swordsmen, Captain? Meditarumi asked curiously. King looked at her deeply and said helplessly, you will know later. He could not tell anyone about the 2 people's escape from the battlefield, at least not now. If people knew that even the ninja swordsman had escaped, I'm afraid that more and more ninjas would flee. At that time, he, the captain-in-chief, would be guilty. At this time, a cold voice came from the night sky. Can you return the remains of my companions to me? Qishuang and the others looked over and saw a man standing on top of a tall tree, bathing in the moonlight, looking down at everyone. Ninjutsu, chapter severing technique. Ha. A skill of chapter severing that was learned without a teacher. Ha. Chapter 68 water stop. Byakugan. King made a seal with one hand, pouring chakra into his right eye. Veins popped up on his right cheek, and he immediately used the power of his Byakugan to capture the opponent in his field of vision. Then, a special figure emitting green chakra appeared in his mind. At the same time, with the help of moonlight and the insight of his Byakugan, he finally saw the face of the person coming. It's you? He exclaimed, and quickly pulled out his kunai, showing a very nervous look. At the same time, the surrounding Mist Ninjas were noisy when they discovered the appearance of the stranger, and some were even ready to take action. Everyone retreat, stay alert, and don't attack at will. King hurriedly ordered everyone again. Why? Meditarumi asked with an indignant look on her face. Many Mist Ninjas also complained. Looking at the figure on the treetops, King said solemnly, just because he is instant body Shizu. Hearing this name, the surroundings suddenly became quiet, leaving only the sound of everyone swallowing their saliva nervously. Terumi, Medi and other little guys are fine. All the other older Mist Ninjas had heard of the name of Instant Body Shizu, and some even saw him in action. He was not an ordinary strongman, but one of the few people who stood at the top of the entire ninja world. With their strength, they could not possibly be his opponent. If they acted rashly and angered the other party, they would only seek their own death. On the other side, when the leader called out the name of Instant Body Shizu, Qishuang was also shocked. No wonder he felt that the man looked familiar. Why is Uchiha Shizu here? At this moment, he was terrified. Uchiha Shizu has 2 superpowers. One is the super fast instant body technique, and the other is the pair of Manjaki Sharingan. Although the instant body technique is not a particularly rare skill, every jonin can use it, and even many chunins can use it. It is a very popular skill. But this skill was brought to an extreme in the hands of Uchiha Shizu. The speed is so fast that it is difficult to react. Many of his opponents were killed easily by him using this super fast speed to move to his side. Therefore, he was called Instant Body Shizu by the people in the ninja world. It can be seen how profound his attainments in the instant body technique are. Although Nanashiro has never really experienced it, and it is the first time he has seen Uchiha Shizu, he clearly understands how terrible it is to use a certain ability to the extreme. For example, Namake's Minato's Flying Thunder God is also extremely fast. In his eyes, the opponent's movements are no different from being still, and they are completely a piece of fat meat for him to slaughter. Another example is Tsunede's Strange Strength, which is extremely strong. Any defense is meaningless in front of her, and she can knock the opponent down with just one punch. There are many other examples of using a certain ability to the extreme. Such people are all top strongmen in the ninja world. As for Uchiha Shizu's second greatest ability, the Manjaki Sharingan, that is a power that cannot be underestimated. If the superb flash body technique gave Uchiha Shizu an advantage in one-on-one combat, then the power of the Manjaki Sharingan gave him the capital to fight against many. Not to mention the super basic ability of the Sharingan itself. The Manjaki Sharingan that evolved on this basis has an imaginable power. Its own Susanoo skill, which is both offensive and defensive, can completely crush most of the Jonin. Nana Frost even doubted whether they could break the defense of Susanoo together. It is a complete weapon for group attack. As for Uchiha Shisu's strongest illusion Katamatsukume, he didn't have too many fears. Although that illusion can forcibly change the target's will, it can only be used on a single person, and it consumes a lot of pupil power. According to his recollection, it is recorded in the original work that the normal use period of that technique is nearly 10 years. And for such an important technique, he fully believes that Uchiha Shisu will not release it on people at will. After all, once this technique is performed, the pupil power is severely consumed, which means that Uchiha Shisu cannot use the main Gekkai Sharingan for a long time, and will temporarily lose the ability of Susanoo. If anyone stands in Uchiha Shisu's position, they will only use Katamatsukume as a deterrent weapon, and will not use it easily. Especially in this kind of battlefield, controlling a single enemy is meaningless. In short, Uchiha Shisu is an extremely terrifying opponent. Could it be that our encounter with Instant Body Shisu this time is the one in the original book, when King led people to attack Konoha, and was scared away by it? Qishuang guessed involuntarily, retreating carefully to the side of the leader. However, he vaguely remembered it. That time, King did not meet Instant Body Shisu directly, but just used his white eyes to find the trace of Uchiha Shisu from a distance, and then retreated. Could it be that this detail has changed because of my appearance? Looking at the arrogant young ninja on the treetop, Qishuang came up with a possibility in her mind. Is he really that powerful? Seeing the fearful expressions of the crowd, Terumi Mei cautiously took 2 steps back and asked the leader in a low voice. You just need to know that, even if all of us here come together, we may not be able to kill him. King said with a serious face. Then, while on guard, he instructed others, hurry up and collect the remains of the 4 adults, especially the 4 ninja swords, don't leave them behind. He had already had the intention of retreating. This surprise attack was no longer necessary when the 7 ninja swordsmen suffered inexplicable losses. Now, they were intercepted by Shunshin Shisu. If they took action directly, who knows how many people would be lost. The most important thing is that taking action cannot guarantee that the opponent can be defeated, and it can only increase the losses. All King can do is to bring back the remains of the 4 people and the ninja swords. Minimize the losses of the surprise attack force. Otherwise, as the captain, not only did he fail to achieve his strategic goal, but he also suffered losses in the ninja swordsman, and lost his ninja sword. He would not be able to report back if he returned like this. He was afraid that he would be directly executed. Next to him, after receiving his order, several people walked out carefully and began to collect the bodies of Miri Shinpachi and Kurizen Kashimaru with fear. Uchiha Shisu, standing on the top of the tree canopy, still looked down at everyone, with no intention of taking action. He wanted to come over and weigh the weight of the famous 7 ninja swordsmen, but he felt that he seemed to be a step too late. 4 of the 7 died, and 3 were missing. None of the remaining Miss Ninjas could arouse his desire to take action, because they were all too weak. Shisu's personality was relatively kind, and he was not the kind of person who liked killing. So, he would not take action right away. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69 Stupidity. Furthermore, he loves peace and does not like unnecessary killing. At the moment, this group of mist ninjas are already afraid and have the intention to retreat. If they can retreat in the face of difficulties and he does not have to do it himself, that would be great. After all, although the number of people on the opposite side is large, they are not taken seriously by him. If he takes action, it will only be a one-sided massacre. At that time, he can only force the mist ninjas to fight him to the death. Moreover, it is impossible for him to kill so many people in a short period of time by himself. If the subsequent Konoha reinforcement arrive, the 2 sides will inevitably fight again. By then, the number of deaths will not be just 1 or 2. Although it is very unfair to the companion, who fought to the death with the 7 ninja swordsmen, to let this group of mist ninjas go, he must consider more living people. Sacrifice the small for the big. I'm sorry, I can't avenge you. Looking at the charred remains, Uchiha Shizu silently apologized in his heart. On the other side, seeing that Shunshin Shizu had no intention of attacking, King and Nanishin both breathed a sigh of relief. Unless they had to, they definitely didn't want to fight such an enemy. At the same time, King's Byakugan also discovered something unusual in the forest in the distance. A large group of people were rushing here quickly. Is it Konoha's reinforcement? He guessed secretly. Then he narrowed the field of vision of the Byakugan and immediately confirmed his guess. Konoha's reinforcement were coming. Uchiha Shizu was just the vanguard. Not daring to delay, he immediately asked loudly to the other side, "Have you cleaned up over there?" He asked about cleaning up the remains of the two ninja sword users in the open space on the other side. Then, he got a satisfactory answer. Alright. Then, King took a deep look at the motionless young ninja on the top of the tree canopy and ordered with a fearful look, "The whole army retreat." After receiving the captain's order to retreat, everyone also breathed a sigh of relief and immediately retreated carefully and orderly. "Everyone, won't you stay and play with me?" A playful voice came from the top. Uchiha Shizu's right hand grasped the hilt of the knife on his back. Seeing this, King, who was responsible for the rear guard, jumped his eyelids, clenched his kunai, and said nervously, "If you are interested, we don't mind playing with you." Then, all the mist ninjas who had not yet begun to retreat also drew their kunai and showed a serious look. "It's just a joke, don't be so nervous." Uchiha Shizu laughed and slowly loosened the hilt of the knife. He just saw the serious look of everyone and couldn't help but play a little, not really wanting to do it. Hearing this, King did not relax his guard and continued to retreat carefully. He didn't want to leave his back to such a dangerous guy, especially when he knew that the other party had extreme speed. Any small mistake could become an opportunity for the other party to kill him. There is nothing wrong with being careful. When the last companion retreated into the shadow of the tree, King looked at the man meaningfully and said solemnly, "Although I don't know what you are worried about, even if you let us go today, we will still not be polite next time we meet. The premise is that you have the ability to be rude." Looking at the vague figure in the shade of the tree, Uchiha Shizu mocked unceremoniously. "You." King was choked when he heard this. However, what he said was the truth. In terms of their strength, they really did not have the ability to be rude. Seeing that the Konoha troops behind were about to enter the battlefield, King did not say anything more and had to give orders again. Retreat at full speed. Then, he led everyone to quickly disappear into the dense forest. Just when the mist ninjas had just left, Konoha's reinforcement also arrived at the battlefield. Someone immediately saw the figure flashing in the forest and shouted, "They are there. Let's chase them." Just as everyone was about to catch up and intercept, a cold voice came from the top. "Forget it. Stop chasing." Everyone followed the sound and immediately saw Uchiha Shizu standing high in the treetops. "Why? Why did you find that group of hateful mist ninjas and not let us stop them?" Someone asked loudly indignantly. He didn't understand Uchiha Shizu's behavior when he found the enemy, but didn't pursue them, but let them escape. Yes. Why? Even if you are instant body Shizu, you must give us a reasonable explanation. Someone shouted loudly. He had long been fed up with the arrogant Uchiha clan. Yes, you must give an explanation. Give everyone an explanation. For a while, the crowd was indignant, and all the Konoha ninjas were questioning Uchiha Shizu's behavior. Uchiha Shizu shook his head, and before he could completely sigh, he had already been behind the leader below. Seeing the young ninja who suddenly used the instant body technique, the Konoha ninjas lost their voices for a while, holding their breath, and didn't even dare to breathe. As for the man, who was targeted by Uchiha Shizu, he was so frightened that he dared not move at all, fearing that he would provoke the other party to take extreme actions. Because the relationship between Konoha and the Uchiha clan was somewhat tense, there were many private fights between the Uchiha clan ninjas and other Konoha ninjas. At this moment, everyone thought that instant body Shizu was going to attack that person. Unfortunately, the situation they expected did not appear. Uchiha Shizu gently patted the man's shoulder and whispered, "I just don't want to see any of you sacrificed." Before he finished speaking, the young ninja with short sleeves and a knife on his back had disappeared. Uchiha Shizu left, leaving the Konoha ninjas staring at each other in a daze, not knowing what to do. He's lying. At this time, the man who was patted on the shoulder by Uchiha Shizu blushed and said in shame and anger, he must be lying. He said he didn't want to see us sacrificed, but in fact he was just afraid of death. He arrived so long before us, but he was neat and tidy, without any trace of fighting, which is enough to show that he was afraid of death. The more he said this, the more he felt that he had guessed the truth. With the slander of Uchiha Shizu, he seemed to have gained courage and confidence again. In a trance, the fear of instant body Shizu just now gradually left him. It seemed that the person who was frightened and motionless just now was not him at all. Then, he incited everyone again. Everyone, please listen to me. The Kirigakure ninja killed so many of our relatives, friends, and companions on the front line. We absolutely cannot let them go so easily. Then what do you want? Someone asked loudly. The man smiled and said, they bypassed the front line and attacked Konoha village at night. There must not be many people coming. And we are all elite ninjas in the village. Why don't we catch up and catch them all in one fell swoop? Not only can we avenge our relatives and friends, but we can also earn a great achievement. Hearing this, the Konoha ninjas were excited. They have been staying in Konoha village and have been suffocating for a long time. In addition, many relatives and friends died on the battlefield, and their hatred for the Mist Ninjas is self-evident. After his incitement, the Konoha ninjas responded one after another, wishing they could catch up with the hateful Mist Ninjas right now, show their skills, and vent their anger. There are always people who think that it is unreasonable for Shizu not to take action. Then please explain. During the 5-cage conference, King found that Danzo controlled Mifune and recalled the scene when he encountered Shizu. At that time, Shizu only used illusions to stun some of the Mist Ninjas and did not kill any of them. He watched King retreat without chasing. Readers who question the mental retardation of my Shizu, please explain this scene in the original work. Chapter 70 Forced Battle. After hastily packing up the remains of my guy, the Konoha ninjas followed the footprints left by the retreating Mist Ninjas with passion and enthusiasm. Although the Mist Ninjas had intentionally cleaned up their footprints when they retreated, there were too many of them, and there were always traces left that were not cleaned up. In addition, among the Konoha ninjas who came to help, there happened to be 1 or 2 members of the Inuzuka clan. They were experts in tracking. Soon, after more than half an hour of tracking, the Konoha ninjas finally caught up with the escaping Mist Ninjas. On the other side, King, who was leading the surprise attack troops to retreat, had already discovered the Konoha ninjas chasing them from behind with the powerful insight of his Byakugan. However, he had not made a sound, but just led the troops forward in silence. It was not because he was afraid of fighting, but because the inexplicable loss of the 7 ninja swordsmen caused the Mist Ninjas to suffer heavy losses. If he got into a fight with the Konoha ninjas behind, because of his impulsiveness, no matter who won or lost, there would definitely be sacrifices. After returning, they will definitely not be able to report. If the situation gets worse, they will be stuck by the group of people behind them and trapped in the heart of the land of fire. What awaits them can only be a wave of encirclement and suppression by Konoha ninjas. The annihilation of the surprise attack team is just around the corner. But now, as the distance between the two sides is getting closer, he can no longer hide it. Captain, what are you going to do with the group of followers behind you? Mediterumi asked the leader quietly. Zabuza also cast a questioning look, but his face has a hint of eagerness. He is a little itchy. It is really a grief to come to Konoha for a surprise attack in the middle of the night and retreat without fighting a single battle. Not only him, but all the people in the surprise attack team are also holding back a ball of fire in their hearts and have nowhere to vent. Looking back at the many expectant subordinates, King sighed and said helplessly, go full speed ahead and get rid of them. What? There was an uproar in the surprise attack team. They didn't understand why the captain-in-chief did this. The earlier instant body Shizu was fine. That was indeed a terrifyingly strong person. They didn't want to go up and die. But now, the group of people behind them were not Uchiha Shizu, and they took the initiative to come to the door. But Captain King kept asking them to speed up, as if they were deliberately avoiding each other, which was really incomprehensible to them. Captain King, let's stop and fight them? Someone suggested loudly. Yes, yes, yes. I agree. I agree too. Then, a series of requests for battle rang out in the surprise attack troops. "Shut up, everyone. Go full speed." Hearing this mess of requests for battle, King immediately got angry. He just wanted to hand over the command to this unit and take it back safely. However, among this group of people, no one sympathized with him, and no one understood his difficulties. Seeing the captain-in-chief get angry, the previous noisy voices suddenly became like misfired firecrackers, and suddenly there was no movement, and there was a dead silence in the queue. Only the rustling footsteps remained. But King knew that the will to fight in everyone's heart had not been completely extinguished, but was temporarily suppressed by him. He didn't know when this suppressed will to fight would explode. Qishuang next to him had not said anything, but he saw it all. Others didn't know, but he knew what the leader king was thinking about. It was nothing more than gain and loss. If there were enough benefits, he believed that the leader king would definitely choose to turn back and fight. However, he couldn't see the existence of such benefits, and couldn't find a reason to turn back and fight. Even if he stood in King's position, he would make the same choice. On the other hand, after noticing that the mist ninja in front not only did not stop to fight with them, but instead accelerated to escape, the Konoha ninjas who were chasing hard behind were very excited. Because the opponent was afraid. This means that they have the strength to annihilate the opponent. As for how much they would pay for annihilating the opponent, they didn't think about it. At the moment, their hearts were filled with hatred for the mist ninja and the excitement of destroying the enemy, and no one thought about anything else. They just wanted to have a quick battle. Hey, guys in front, are you so cowardly? You don't even have the courage to turn around and fight? Are you in a hurry to go back to your mother? A Konoha ninja mocked loudly, hoping to provoke the other party to stop fighting. I think they are not only in a hurry to go back to their mother, but also want to go home to breastfeed. Someone else added. Then, there was a burst of laughter from the crowd of Konoha. Even though the laughter was nearly 100 meters away, it echoed clearly in the ears of the mist ninjas, stimulating every sensitive nerve of theirs. Captain King, let's stop and fight them. A mist ninja said again. Captain, stop. The voices of requesting to fight rang out again. Everyone, let me think about it again, okay? King turned around and said to everyone helplessly. This time, he did not get angry. Because he knew that everyone had been provoked to anger. If he continued to suppress it ignorantly, I'm afraid that people's hearts would be scattered and the collapse of the entire army would be imminent. Therefore, he could only speak nicely and use the delaying tactic instead of directly refusing. Hearing his unexpected words, the mist ninjas could not continue to force him and had to suppress the fire in their hearts again and wait for the captain's reply. Qishuang, who saw everything, also understood that this battle was inevitable. Leader King could delay for a while, but not forever. They were tolerant everywhere, but the people of Konoha didn't know what was good for them, and had to catch up and provoke them. They really deserved a beating, so they had to fight. All he could do was to help the leader, reduce his own losses, and win the upcoming battle beautifully. Suddenly, he seemed to remember something, and whispered to Leader King, Captain, I remember when we came here before. It seems that we passed through a big canyon, right? Yeah. It's just in front. Almost there. Although he didn't know why this little subordinate asked this, King still nodded subconsciously. The terrain there is very dangerous. Why don't we set an ambush? Qishuang said to him with a smile. Ambush? Meditarumi, who was standing next to him, was a little surprised and shook her head, saying, the perception of ninjas is far beyond that of ordinary people. There must be some perceptive ninjas among the Konoha ninjas who are tracking us. The ambush may not be hidden from them. Qishuang rolled her eyes at her and said, who told you that we should hide there stupidly and wait for them to catch up before we attack? Huh? Meditarumi was a little surprised and asked, ambush, isn't that how it's always fought? At the same time, Zabuza, who was standing next to him, also cast a curious look. He was also very curious about what tricks this classmate who was always unexpected had come up with. King had boasted at the 5-Cage conference that he had won a big victory with his Byakugan. Chapter 71, Desire. Nana Shuang still kept moving forward and slowly said to the three people, the perception of ninjas is far beyond that of ordinary people, and the vigilance of perception type ninjas is even more terrifying. It is almost impossible to ambush them. So, we can't use the methods we use to deal with ordinary people to deal with ninjas. We have to be a little more flexible. King looked at him seriously and asked, what do you want to do? Since the last time he successfully killed the Hyuga clan, he never dared to ignore the advice of this extremely smart little subordinate. This is indeed the case. Thanks to Nana Qishuang's wisdom, they have saved a lot of trouble on the battlefield and have established many merits. At present, King also saw the state of the Miss Ninjas and was anxious in his heart. He didn't want to fight, but the Konoha ninjas behind him kept provoking him. Facing the raging fighting spirit and anger of the crowd, he couldn't suppress it at all. Therefore, it was only a matter of time before the two sides fought. What he could do was to find a way to minimize the losses. As for the possibility of losing the battle, he had never considered it at all. Because with the help of his Byakugan, he had counted the number of Konoha ninjas behind him, and there were about 600 of them. The most important thing was that there was no one with too strong chakra in this group of people, and Shunshin Shisu was not among them. With the strength of their surprise attack team alone, they could completely defeat this group of Konoha pursuers. What he cared about was only the losses that would occur on his side. Now that Ninashiro took the initiative to speak, he felt like he saw a glimmer of hope. With his understanding of this little subordinate, if it was not a good plan, he would never take the initiative to propose it. Hurry up, hurry up. Meditarumi also showed a hint of expectation. Nanashiro looked into the distance and whispered, even if we can hide from the perception of the perception type ninja, if all of us go to ambush and they suddenly lose our trace, it will also arouse their suspicion and it will be difficult for them to fall into the ambush. Continue. King nodded in agreement. He took a deep breath and continued, I suggest that we separate a few teams from the surprise attack force and speed up to the front to ambush, while our main force maintains a certain speed to attract their attention and lure them through the canyon. As long as our main force has not yet gotten rid of their pursuit, they will not deliberately pay attention to the surrounding situation. In addition, there are not too many people in ambush, so they should not be discovered. When our main force rushes out of the canyon mouth, let the team that ambushed earlier immediately blow up the rock wall and cut off their retreat. Our people will block the valley mouth and climb to the top of the canyon from the side, completely cutting off their possibility of escape and taking advantage of the terrain to catch them all in one fell swoop. After hearing his plan, Meditarumi was stunned, and it took her a long time to recover. She sighed, you are too cruel. If we follow your plan, I'm afraid that none of these Konoha ninjas will survive. Then, she changed her tone and smiled happily, but I like it. At this moment, Zabuza next to him poured a basin of cold water on him and said unconvincedly, the idea is good, but climbing walls and running on rooftops is just a common thing for ninjas, and the terrain of the canyon can't trap them at all. What if they have already rushed out before we climbed to the top of the canyon? Qishuang glanced at him and asked with a smile, Zabuza, with your ability, how long will it take to climb out from the bottom of the canyon? The little boy with a dagger on his back thought for a while and continued, the rock walls on both sides of the canyon are very steep, about 100 meters high. At my speed, it will take about a minute to rush out. And I'm just a chunin. I think the majority of Konoha's pursuers should be chunins, with very few jonins, and there are also many genins. The time they rushed out of the canyon should not be much slower than me. Then, he looked at Qishuang again and asked solemnly, do you think that in such a short time, our people can really climb to the top of the canyon in time and occupy the terrain to form an encirclement? Hearing this, Meditarumi and Ao also showed a puzzled look. What Zabuza said seemed to be true. Seeing this, Nana Frost smiled slightly, stretched out her index finger and shook it, and continued, Zabuza, what you said makes sense, but you overlooked a lot of key things. So, that's why you have such doubts. What did I overlook? Zabuza frowned and asked. Meditarumi and Ao also pricked up their ears, fearing that they had missed something. Nana Frost smiled confidently and said, you forgot that they didn't know about our ambush in advance. What do you mean? Zabuza also felt that he seemed to have forgotten something, but he just couldn't remember it. Qishuang looked at him with interest and continued, because they don't know we are setting an ambush, so when they find something unusual, they will think, explore, and hesitate. They won't rush up the cliffs of the canyon like you do. By the time they realize that they can only escape from the top of the canyon, it's too late. Do you understand now? After saying that, he showed a playful smile on his face, like a senior who was teaching an ignorant junior. Zabuza felt annoyed, but he had nothing to say. His consideration was still inappropriate. After listening to Qishuang's explanation, Terumi merely probed, "So, you want the ambush team to blow up the rock wall and cut off their retreat? The purpose is also to attract their attention, so that we can climb up to the top of the canyon and buy time." "That's right." Qishuang nodded and smiled. "When they find something unusual behind them, they will definitely hesitate and send people back to check." Then they found that their retreat was blocked, and they had no choice but to move forward, only to find that we turned around and turned back to block the entrance of the valley, unable to advance or retreat. Finally, when they wanted to climb up the cliff to escape again, our people were already blocking the top of the canyon. Or we said that our people had set out before them and were closer to the top of the canyon than them. In any case, our people must have occupied the advantageous terrain above the canyon first, beat them down from a high position, and completely wiped them out in the canyon. Looking at him strategizing with a confident and calm look, there was a bit more brilliance in Terumi Mena's eyes. The leader of the team, King, decided to implement the plan without hesitation. He immediately dispatched 2 teams to ambush in front, and told them to use the mist hidden technique to cover their breath. It was just to blow up the rock wall to block the road. The manpower of 2 teams was enough. On the other side, Uchiha Shisu, who forced the mist ninja to retreat, quickly returned to Konoha village to report. Although he scared away many mist ninja, he still felt very disappointed. The ending of the 7 ninja swordsmen was too unexpected. He didn't even have a chance to fight. And those who were left, none of them could fight. Such a day is really too lonely. Tactics can be more flexible, and ambushes can also be set up by taking advantage of the time difference. Chapter 72, Unfinished. Has the matter been resolved? The third Hokage asked in surprise, looking at the young ninja kneeling on one knee on the floor. That was Uchiha Shisu. Although he had never doubted the ability of instant body Shisu to resolve this matter, he never expected that the other party would come back so quickly. The person who came was the famous 7 ninja swordsmen. Those 7 people are not so weak and vulnerable, right? The third Hokage couldn't help but muttered secretly. Shisu raised his head and replied solemnly, "Not only the 7 ninja swordsmen are attacking this time, but also nearly 1,000 Kirigakure ninjas. I think they should want to use the 7 ninja swordsmen as the vanguard, and then assist with the rest of the Kirigakure ninjas to launch a surprise attack on Konoha village." Hearing this, Sarutobi Hiruzen couldn't help but feel nervous. At this moment, Konoha village was fighting on 2 fronts, and its internal defense was weak. With the combat power of the 7 ninja swordsmen, it was not a difficult task to lead people to break through Konoha village's defense. If they really broke in, the consequences would be disastrous. In addition to the ninjas who stayed behind, there were many civilians in the village. Once it became a battlefield, the losses for Konoha village would be incalculable. Whether or not they repelled the invading enemy, Konoha village would not be the winner. Thinking of this, he hurriedly asked, "What was the result?" Uchiha Shisu smiled bitterly and said, "I went a little late. When I arrived, 4 of the 7 ninja swordsmen had died, and 3 were missing. I guess they must have escaped with serious injuries." "How could this happen?" Sarutobi Hiruzen widened his eyes and was so shocked that he pulled off a strand of his white beard without noticing. Shisu shook his head and said, "I'm not sure either. However, before approaching the battlefield, I felt a very strong chakra burst. I guess it was the Konoha companion who protected the 3 children and retreated using some secret technique. That's why he dragged the 4 people to death together. For the specific situation, call the 3 children again and ask them. Maybe we can get some clues." "Those 3 children?" The 3rd generation looked thoughtful. At this moment, he suddenly remembered that one of the 3 children was named Might Guy, the son of Might Day, who was responsible for covering their departure. Both of them were not good at skills other than physical skills, so he was deeply impressed by this special father and son with thick eyebrows and big eyes. "Go, find Might Guy." Then, he said to a dark corner in the office. Then, Uchiha Shisu noticed that someone came out of the shadow and left the Hokage's office. He knew that it was the Enbu ninja who was responsible for protecting the Hokage. Sometimes, they were also responsible for helping the Hokage to pass on orders and other trivial matters. Not long after, a boy with thick eyebrows, big eyes, and a half watermelon head came to the Hokage's office under the leadership of an Enbu member. Then, the Enbu ninja retreated back to the shadows in the corner and disappeared. "Hello, Hokage." The little boy saluted the old man with tears in his eyes. "I have something to ask you," the third generation said to the little boy solemnly, holding a pipe in his mouth. The little boy wiped his tears, suppressed his inner sadness, and choked up. "What do you want to ask, sir? Did your father, my guy, use any special secret technique to protect you from leaving?" The old man asked seriously. He knew Might Guy's strength very well. He was just an ordinary genin, and a genin who only knew physical skills. If he said that the other party had completely stopped the 7 ninja swordsmen without using any secret techniques, and directly killed 4 of them, he would not believe it at all. "Yeah." Might Guy nodded, and Shisu beside him also pricked up his ears curiously, only to hear him choking up and saying, "Dad used a secret technique to open the 8th death gate, called the 8 gates of ninja formation. So that's it." The third generation suddenly realized. Hearing this, he already understood what was going on. He knew the 5 basic escape techniques of wind, thunder, water, fire, and earth, and was also proficient in most of the ninjutsu secret techniques of Konoha village, so he was respected as a ninjutsu doctor. Even if he didn't know some ninjutsu, with his rich experience, he could barely understand what was going on. Although he had never heard of the 8 gates of ninja that Might Guy mentioned, he understood from the other party's few words that it was a secret technique that gained strength by opening the 8 gates. However, opening the 8 gates requires very hard training. Therefore, even though the world knows that the 8 gates contain extremely strong power, few people try to open them. Until now, it was the first time he saw someone using the power of the 8 gates. What he didn't expect was that the power of the 8 gates was so terrible that it could allow a pure physical skill type genin to directly kill 4 ninja sword users. This kind of power is really too terrifying. Thinking of this, he solemnly asked the little boy, "Has your father taught you this 8 gates of ninja?" "Yes, my father taught me." K wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes and nodded. The third generation solemnly warned him, "This technique is too powerful, and it overdraws your body. I hope you will use it carefully in the future, and don't teach it to others easily." "Yes, I know," K replied in a low voice. "If possible, I want to include it in the Book of Seals. I wonder if you are willing?" The old man looked at the little boy expectantly. Such a powerful secret technique is fully qualified to be included in the collection of Konoha Village's techniques. After all, Might Guy is only a 10-year-old child. He didn't think too much, and nodded and agreed directly. "Oh no, Lord Hokage." At this time, another Konoha ninja rushed in from the outside. "What's the matter?" The third generation frowned and asked, with an ominous premonition in his heart. The man shouted breathlessly, "Oh no, Lord. The reinforcement you just sent out are chasing the Kirigakure ninja." "What? What?" Hearing this, Uchiha Shisu stood up suddenly, and the third generation was even more shocked. "You asked them to chase?" The old man turned his head and looked at Uchiha Shisu. The reinforcement he sent out earlier were only deployed based on the estimated combat power of the 7 ninja swordsmen, and did not take into account the Kirigakure troops behind the 7 ninja swordsmen. The chance of winning the Kirigakure ninjas with the existing reinforcement is extremely slim. "I didn't," Uchiha Shisu replied in astonishment. "In order to reduce unnecessary losses, after forcing the Kirigakure ninjas to retreat, I ordered them not to chase anymore. Could it be that they are greedy for merit and are reckless?" Then, he thought of a possibility. "I'm afraid that's it." The Sandaime returned to his seat with a dejected look on his face, and whispered, "The war on the front line is tense, and many of their relatives and friends died on the battlefield. It's impossible to say that they have no hatred for the Mist Ninja. At this time, the group of Mist Ninjas were forced back by you, making them feel that the other side was vulnerable. So it's only natural for them to do the ridiculous thing of chasing. Shisu, you have done a bad thing with good intentions this time." The old man sighed and looked at the dark dome, feeling very bitter. Everyone can try to open the 8 acupoints, but Might Day's method should be his own creation. It's understandable that the Sandaime wants to include it. Chapter 73 please. Hearing this, Uchiha Shizu's face turned pale in an instant. Although there were no strong men in the attacking Kirigakure army, and the number of only 1,000 people could not pose any fatal threat to him, that was only for him. For others, especially the Konoha ninja who had just reinforced him, the Kirigakure ninja army was completely a man-eating tiger. In terms of per capita strength, the two sides were almost the same, but the Konoha side had only 600 people, while the Kirigakure side had nearly 1,000 people. Once the two sides fought, the possibility of the Konoha reinforcement winning was extremely small, or in other words, the possibility of being completely wiped out was very high. The third generation rubbed his temples and said helplessly, I will immediately mobilize another 500 people for you, and order you to lead people to reinforce, as soon as possible. Yes. Uchiha Shizu nodded without hesitation. At this moment, he only hoped that the group of reckless guys, who had not really fought with the Kirigakure ninjas, could hold on until he arrived with his men. Otherwise, the consequences would be serious. After all, he was the one who let the group of Kirigakure ninjas go. If the previous reinforcement were wiped out, or suffered heavy losses, he would definitely be responsible. In addition, the relationship between the Uchiha clan and Konoha was already tense. If this happened, it would only worsen the relationship between the Uchiha clan and Konoha. The current situation is extremely bad. At this moment, he even regretted that he had not chosen to go to war with the Kirigakure ninjas, because he was worried about the sacrifice of his own people. If he had started the war with him present, there would not be too many casualties. Unfortunately, it was all too late. He underestimated everyone's hatred for the Kirigakure ninjas, and overestimated everyone's awareness. Just as the third Hokage was busy withdrawing manpower again, King led the Kirigakure ninjas to use a speed that was sometimes fast and sometimes slow to hook the Konoha pursuers behind them, and soon saw the big canyon. Full speed forward, the time for counterattack is coming. King shouted loudly to everyone. Then, there were bursts of surprised cheers from the troops. The Mist ninjas had been chased by the Konoha people for a long time, and when they heard that they were about to launch a counterattack, they all smiled and were full of fighting spirit. The Konoha ninjas who were chasing behind were also very nervous when they heard the cheers in front. But when they slowed down a little and prepared to fight, they found that the Mist ninjas were running faster than before, which made everyone hate them. Bah. I thought these cowards were going to turn around and fight. I was so nervous for nothing. Someone spat fiercely with a look of disdain on his face. That's right. These hateful guys are really cowardly. Why don't we drive them directly to the eastern front line and attack them from the front and back with the frontline troops to wipe them out completely? Someone immediately proposed. Yes, that's a good idea. Someone echoed. I agree too. At this moment, they felt that they had completely defeated their opponents and did not consider the possibility of losing. The joy of victory and the pleasure of revenge occupied their hearts, and only one word remained in their minds: chase. As long as they caught up with their opponents, their victory would be within their grasp. Just after they chased out of the dense forest, they saw the hateful group of Mist ninjas entering a large canyon. Everyone quickly caught up. Stop. A member of the Inuzuka clan who was in the front of the chase signaled everyone to stop. Why stop? Hurry up and chase. Someone immediately urged. I always feel that something is wrong. The closer we get to this canyon, the more frightened I feel. Looking at the dark entrance of the canyon, it was like a beast that opened its bloody mouth to devour people. The man's face was solemn. Hearing his words, someone also said, for some reason, I also feel that it is chilly here. As he said that, he rubbed his palms, as if it was really cold. If you didn't say it, I wouldn't have felt it. Now that you said it, I feel a little cold too. Someone echoed. Me too. Then, more and more people in the crowd followed suit. Seeing this, one person pointed at the mist lingering on both sides of the canyon and said nonchalantly, I think you are too suspicious. Isn't it just a frost? Why are you so scared? Frost. Everyone turned their heads and saw that under the moonlight, a thick layer of white frost rose around the canyon and was slowly spreading towards the entrance with the breeze. It turned out that was the source of the coldness on everyone's body. Hurry up and chase them. It's too late. It will be even more difficult to catch up with those cowards. The man hurriedly urged. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's go. Then, a ninja from the Inuzuka family took the lead and stepped into the dark canyon. At the other end of the canyon, Nanashiro and others rushed out of the valley entrance quickly and immediately blocked the way. Then, King assigned people to climb up to the top of the canyon. Given the speed of those followers, it's a bit strange that they haven't caught up to the exit yet. Meditarumi, who was climbing up, asked Nanashiro in surprise. Because, until now, she has not heard the footsteps of the Konoha people in the canyon. According to Qishuang's earlier plan, although the people of Konoha will arrive at the exit a step later, they should not be so slow. The terrain here is dangerous. They have doubts, and they're not chasing easily. This is normal. Qishuang smiled and said, however, the more they hesitate, the more time they waste, and the more beneficial it is for us. But what if they are afraid and don't chase? Terumi Medi asked with a bitter face. Qishuang looked at her unhappily and asked back, if it was you who chased the enemy for most of the night, and didn't catch a hair, and just turned back like this, would you be willing? No. Terumi Medi curled her lips and replied reluctantly. At this moment, a dripping sound of footsteps came from the canyon. It was the Konoha ninjas chasing in. Although Qishuang and the others were not inside, because of the special terrain of the canyon, the sound inside would be extremely amplified. Even through the thick stone wall, they could hear clearly. Speed up and guard the valley entrance. King shouted to everyone immediately. Then, everyone gathered their minds and climbed up to the top of the canyon. In the canyon, not long after the Konoha ninjas rushed in, they heard a loud rumble from behind, followed by the sound of landslides and cracking of rocks. Run. Without having time to think too much, the leading ninja shouted loudly for fear of being buried by the collapsed earth and rocks. Then, the Konoha ninjas rushed into the canyon like crazy. Not long after, when the collapse sound stopped, the frightened people stopped. We have to find someone to go back and see what happened. Someone panted. I'll go too. Then, 4 or 5 Konoha ninjas left the team and turned back. With the moonlight falling from above, they soon saw the canyon entrance filled with earth and rocks. Chapter 74 Falling into a Trap. It's bad. It's bad. The exit at the back is blocked. Several people rushed back to the troops to report. What? The people waiting for the news were horrified when they heard this. How is it possible? Someone grabbed the collar of a fellow informant, lifted him up angrily, and asked loudly. We don't know either. The back is completely blocked. There is no way out. The man who was held cried and replied. Put him down. Getting angry will not help. Someone patted the angry man on the shoulder and asked the few people who came back to report the news. Is the blockage serious? Can it be opened again? This sudden change made him lose his enthusiasm for pursuit. If possible, he wanted to open the passage at the back, just in case. A messenger swallowed his saliva and said nervously, the accumulation of soil and rocks at the back is particularly serious. It is impossible to open it again in a short time. Can't the detonator explode? Someone asked. No. Another messenger shook his head and continued, there are too many piles of earth and rocks, and a lot of detonating tags are needed. If we use detonating tags, I'm afraid it will cause the rocks to collapse again. One person sighed heavily and said, since there is no way to escape, let's just rush out from the front. I'm afraid it's not that simple. A ninja with an inverted triangle tattoo wiped the tip of his nose, his expression a little solemn. That was a ninja from the Inuzuka clan. What's going on? Someone asked hurriedly, with an ominous premonition in his heart. The man from the Inuzuka family looked at the other side of the canyon and said in a complicated tone, my nose smelled countless chakras gathering at the valley entrance. It should be the group of Miss Ninjas who blocked the exit. So, the rock collapse and the entrance being blocked just now were also their doing? Someone reacted immediately. They were not all brainless fools, but the Miss Ninja's hasty escape gave them the impression that their opponents were vulnerable, so they didn't think too much about it. At this moment, being blocked in the canyon, with no way out, someone finally thought of something. I think so. Someone nodded in agreement, and then said, the white frost outside the canyon just now is probably left by them using the mist hiding technique to cover the ambushes. What should we do then? Someone panicked immediately. The opponent who had just run away with his head in his arms suddenly turned around and showed his fangs, which finally made him realize that victory was not as simple as they had thought earlier. Death was never far away from them. The man from the Inuzuka family looked up and said helplessly, "The terrain here is too narrow, and they have blocked the entrance to the valley. I'm afraid it will be difficult for us to rush out. Let's just climb up the cliff." "Yes, yes, yes." Someone showed a happy look on his face and nodded immediately. "We are all not ordinary people. The rock cliff can't stop us at all. Since we can't rush out from the right way, let's climb out from the top of our heads." The ninja from the Inuzuka family immediately jumped onto the cliff and said to the people below, "There is no time to lose. Let's quickly climb out of the canyon from the cliff." Then, the Konoha ninjas climbed up the cliff with joy. At the same time, Qishuang and others had reached the top of the canyon. "Start the attack." Looking at the Konoha ninjas below who were like ants, the leader king waved his hand and gave an order. The mist-hidden ninjas took out various throwing tools and smashed them with all their strength at the hateful enemies, who had been chasing them for half a night. "No, it's an enemy attack." Someone immediately discovered the abnormality and changed his position while reminding loudly. Unfortunately, his reminder was still a little late. With the sound of swishing through the air, a black rain fell from the sky above the canyon. With the bright moonlight, the Konoha ninjas clearly saw that the black rain was a deadly kunai and shuriken. Puff puff puff. With the muffled sound of flesh being pierced, and many cries of crying and shouting, the Konoha ninjas on the cliff were in a mess. Some avoided it, some were injured. There were also unlucky people who were directly hit by several kunai and were knocked to the bottom of the cliff with heart-wrenching screams. Only the dull sound of landing was heard, and the screams stopped abruptly. Hold on, don't panic." Someone tried to comfort the panicked people and organize an effective defense. Unfortunately, his voice could not calm the fear in everyone's hearts. The sudden attack and the threat of death made many people lose their minds, and they could only scream hysterically and flee randomly. The result was that the situation became more and more chaotic, and even many companions were squeezed down by their own panicked movements. Fortunately, not all people were confused. After all, there were still some people who kept their sanity, gathered together, organized a joint defense, and supported the first wave of ninja tool throwing. At this time, everyone realized that nearly 1/5 of the people had fallen to the bottom of the cliff. As for their ending, there was no need to think too much. It must be a life and death situation. Even if they were lucky enough to survive, they would probably be seriously injured. Then, after throwing away the ninja tools on their bodies, the mist-hidden ninjas above the canyon began a dazzling ninjutsu offensive. After the first round of offensive, the Konoha ninjas below also stabilized their position, and they all attached their feet to the cliff wall, sprinting upwards and fighting back. Unfortunately, the mist-hidden ninjas were high above, and the Konoha ninjas on the cliff were completely live targets in their eyes, fat meat on the chopping board, and they could cut it however they wanted. The Konoha ninjas below had to pay attention to maintaining the chakra on their feet, while dodging and counter-attacking. The situation was very unfavorable. Konoha immediately fell into a disadvantage. Looking at Terumi Mei, who was spitting out the dissolving mucus and knocking down the Konoha ninjas one by one, Qishuang asked in surprise, "Come to think of it, I have been here for so long, and I have only seen you use this kind of bloodline limit ninjutsu. Don't you know other bloodline limit ninjutsu?" He still remembered that in his memory, the adult Terumi Mei knew 2 bloodline limits, and was the first double bloodline limiter in the history of the ninja world. But he had never seen this little girl use a second bloodline limit ninjutsu. Hearing this, Terumi Mei stopped spitting bubble gum, wiped the milky white mucus from the corner of her mouth, and rolled her eyes at him again, saying unhappily, "Don't you know the second bloodline limit ninjutsu?" "No." Qishuang shook her head very simply. Dodging a kunai shot from below, Terumi Mei spit out another mouthful of mucus, knocking down the annoying guy who just shot her, and turned around and said, "Have you ever heard that there are people in the ninja world who know the second blood limit ninjutsu?" "Yes," Nanashiro replied subconsciously, after knocking down a Konoha ninja with an ice cone. "Ah, what did you say?" Terumi Mei suddenly stopped spitting out the dissolving mucus, revealing a look of disbelief. Chapter 75, Small Victory. "Can you say that again?" Meditarumi stared at Qishuang with her eyes wide open. Because this news was really unexpected. She had never heard of someone having 2 bloodline limits. Seeing the curious looks from the mist ninjas next to her, Qishuang knew that she had said something wrong. Ahem. He coughed twice, pretending to recall something seriously, and said uncertainly, I seem to have seen such an example in some ancient book. Seeing this, the mist ninjas next to him shook their heads and focused on dealing with the Konoha ninjas who were trying to climb up. For this seemingly plausible news, they just thought they heard a child bragging. What do you mean by seem? If there is no, there is no. The ancient book you are looking at may have been left by some senior to joke with us. Meditarumi turned her face away and chattered. Maybe, right? Haha. Qishuang scratched his head and laughed dryly. HMPH. Meditarumi snorted, spat out another mouthful of mucus, and continued. According to known historical records, there has never been a person with 2 bloodline limits in the ninja world. In the future, you should read less of those messy books. Otherwise, you can't even distinguish the true from the false information. Yes, yes, yes. Nana Frost nodded repeatedly, not daring to refute. However, he also determined that Meditarumi now only knew the bloodline limit of dissolution, and as for the second bloodline limit, it was probably learned by herself later. However, he was also very curious about what was the opportunity that triggered Meditarumi to learn the second bloodline limit by herself. After all, in terms of the current environment, Meditarumi did not realize that a person could really have 2 bloodline limits. Therefore, she would not bother to study that now. As for asking Nana Frost to change Meditarumi's mind and make her believe that the 2 bloodline limits can coexist in one body, he really did not have enough reasons to convince her. After all, the first example of having 2 bloodline limits appeared in the future. Soon, under the fire suppression of the Mist Ninja, the counterattack of the Konoha ninjas at the bottom of the cliff became weaker and weaker. Occasionally, a few powerful guys broke through the blockade and reached the top of the canyon. Before they could catch their breath, they were immediately killed by the surrounding Mist Ninjas. When the last Konoha ninja on the cliff was blasted down by the Mist Ninjas, and no more Konoha ninjas climbed up from the bottom of the cliff, cheers broke out above the canyon. Yeah, we killed all these bastards. These damn guys have been chasing us for so long, and I finally let out a sigh of relief. In this battle, the Mist Ninjas took advantage of the terrain and wiped out all the Konoha ninjas that were chasing Konoha. Although there were still a few unlucky guys who died here, overall, with extremely small losses, Konoha was completely wiped out. The Mist Ninjas can be said to have won a great victory in this battle. Finally, it brought some comfort to the heavy losses of the 7 ninja swordsmen and pulled back the low morale. You. Just as everyone was cheering, King once again pointed out several team leaders and solemnly instructed, you guys take your men down and deal with all those who are still breathing. Don't leave a single one alive. Yes. Suppressing the joy of victory, several team leaders responded in unison. Then, they led their respective team members along the cliff, down to the bottom of the canyon again, and carried out the cleanup task assigned by the leader king. At the other exit of the canyon, many Mist Ninjas also lifted the blockade of the canyon entrance. After receiving the ceasefire signal from above, a pile of corpses lying in disorder at the valley entrance was exposed. Although most of the Konoha ninjas chose to break through upwards, there were still a few who chose to break through from the valley, in trance with a fluke mentality. As for the result, they were naturally killed by the Mist Ninjas blocked outside the valley entrance. No one escaped at all. There was no chance to even rush out of the valley, and it was even worse than those Konoha ninjas who rushed to the top of the canyon. On the other side, Terumi Mei, who was slumped on the ground, whispered to Qishuang, why does the captain still look so unhappy? After we won the battle? She noticed that the leader still had a sad face. However, it was better than before. It would be strange if he could be happy. Qishuang replied nonchalantly, tell me why. Terumi Mei showed a curious baby look. In the whole team, she felt that Qishuang was the most knowledgeable one. No matter what she asked, the other party seemed to be able to say something, which was very interesting. How could she know that Qishuang's soul age was much older than hers? In terms of experience, it was naturally not comparable to a little girl like her who was in her teens. In addition, Qishuang had read the original story of this world, and he knew a thing or two about many things, so he seemed very knowledgeable. It was very easy to answer the questions of such a little guy. In order to avoid causing displeasure to the leader, Nana Shuang lowered her voice and said, although we killed these hundreds of Konoha ninjas at a very small cost this time, but this still cannot erase the heavy losses of the 7 ninja swordsmen who were almost wiped out. And as the captain of this surprise attack force, Captain King naturally cannot escape responsibility. It would be strange if he was in a good mood. After saying that, Nana Shuang shook her head and sighed. Oh, so that's how it is. Terumi Mei looked as if she had suddenly realized something. While the Kirigakure ninjas were resting in place, King, who had always been vigilant, discovered a new situation. Another new Konoha troop broke into his Byakugan vision. The leader at the head was Uchiha Shisu, who had met him once before. Everyone gather and prepare to retreat. Seeing this situation, King immediately gave everyone a signal to retreat. We just rested for a while. Why are we setting off again? I really can't walk anymore, Captain. Terumi Mei rubbed her calves with a bitter look on her face. Konoha's reinforcement are catching up, King said to everyone with a serious face, giving his willful subordinate a hard look. Why don't we fight again and take down the army behind us? Anyway, we didn't suffer any losses just now. Someone immediately made a suggestion. Then, his suggestion was echoed by others. Yes, we can fight again. Fight again. The big victory just now made everyone full of confidence, and they were looking forward to another victory. There are about 500 people coming, and the leader is Flash Body Shisu, King said to everyone solemnly. Hearing the name of Flash Body Shisu, the fighting spirit of the Miss Ninjas immediately waned. Ah, why is it him again? Everyone was resentful, but there was nothing they could do. A strong man of that level could contain a large part of their power, and with the cooperation of the other Konoha ninjas, their chances of winning were extremely low. No one was a fool, and was willing to fight a battle that was not sure. Then, under the leadership of King, the Miss Ninjas quickly left the canyon. When Uchiha Shisu arrived at the canyon, there were only corpses and bloodstains that had not yet dried. The Battle of Canopy Bridge was very famous and crucial, but it was just a small battle to block logistics, not a frontal battle. It was because of the cut-off of logistics that Iwagakure was defeated on the battlefield, so don't confuse the Battle of Canopy Bridge with the battle where Konoha defeated Iwagakure head-on. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.